from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, Dominic. A Throwback Thursday edition.
Oh, really? Throwback? Well, happy Thursday to you. Fancy Brian on the board, our fair audience. Thank you for joining us. Crudy, what is a Throwback Thursday exactly to you?
Well, nothing but old good friends. And by the way, Throwback Thursday, better than my first thought, Nickelback Thursday.
Look at this photograph.
I wouldn't do it to Congressman Mark Pocan, my congressman, one of our favorites. He called out one of his congressional colleagues once upon a time for his Nickelback fanship, something of the sort,
come
right?
on, man.
So
Nickelback's all right.
It crossed my mind we could do, a Nickelback themed show.
Yeah.
But I thought, the congressman, my congressman, our good friend, I couldn't do it to Mark Pocan. He's coming round at 3:05 today. So looking forward to that big interview. And also, John Nichols from The Nation, from the Cap Times locally, Dom. He's going to tell us a little story about a man you and I both know well. Our buddy, John Nichols, is going to tell us that Ron Johnson, like the Chevy Corvair, is unsafe at any speed.
The title of Nichols' piece at thenation.com, Ron Johnson needs to come with a warning label.
This isn't very nice, is it?
He's a dangerous man. I used to describe him as country club cordial. He's kind of moved beyond the cordialness. Then he stopped coming on the show.
It's been some time since he's been around. And he was always very cordial with us when he came around.
Yes,
so that's an accurate statement.
But he's changed a little, or his true colors are shining brightly through at this point. All Cyndi Lauper style. Right. That's not a song request, just for the record.
That's a great song. It's a classic song.
One hand is Cyndi Lauper, the other hand is Nickelback.
Nickelback, yes.
What to do?
So we're doing a unsafe at any speed sort of Thursday edition. Dom, the headline, where
all right, so just to reiterate, so John Nichols from The Nation coming on at 2:30 today. Are going to rip on some Senator Ron Johnson. He's in the news again. Put an op-ed out in the local paper here in Milwaukee at the Journal Sentinel. We'll get to that as well. So John Nichols at 2:30, Congressman Mark Pocan at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Perhaps we'll get to some of the local state coverage. Governor Evers signed a Republican budget today, bipartisan. He said, perhaps we'll get to some of that sound and conversation at 4 o'clock.
And you were there. I was shocked. We provided live coverage of the event, and it wasn't me doing the hard work.
It was.
I thought there was a greater likelihood that this happened, like a mile and a half from the Salvia
1.5 miles from my house. Yes, I could not go.
And the newsman here, Luke, our news guy, said, did you call Dom and tell him to go to the Evers press conference? And I laughed in his face. No offense to Luke. There is nothing that I tell Salvia to do. It's kind of like my wife. I beg him to do stuff. And sometimes he obliges, but I said there's a 0% chance that Dom's going to the press conference.
Oh man, I woke up a little late for me today. It was almost 7:30. Usually I'm up earlier than that, and already late because I could work out at 8:30. Jumped on, started going through the email, saw the email from the governor's office. Oh, okay, budget stuff going on. That's about time. Let's see what's going on with that. And yeah, do a little tour today in Whitefish Bay at Cumberland School, 1.5 miles from my house. I'd left to work out a little early just to make sure I could go get to Evers on time. Yeah, man, went out on the road today for 1 mile.
Do you know who covered Evers' last budget signing ceremony? Wasn't you?
So we're even now.
No, it was me. It was me. There is a correct answer. It was me.
My coverage was much better, I'm sure.
I'm sure it was. It probably was, but kudos. You traveled the 1.5. Was it linear miles or as the crow flies?
No, as the crow flies, it was probably less than. It's certainly less than that. Maybe about a mile as the crow flies.
But you did drive, didn't you?
Oh yeah, man. Hey, man, time is of the essence. Got things to do.
Absolutely. Planning, prepping for this big show. So anyways, the governor of the great state of Wisconsin, the current one, right?
Yes, that guy,
Tony Evers.
Yes.
Well, you would think it could have been a Walker budget because Evers signed another Republican budget. We'll tell you all about it in the 4:00 hour. Damn, seriously though, kudos. 1.5 miles. It's quite a
Not
distance.
only that, and a shower and a collar shirt and my hair pulled back. I mean, saw some of our legislative friends up there. Sandy Pope didn't recognize me. Haven't seen her in a while. She had to do the double take, maybe turn around and show her the back of my hair where my hair was pulled back. Yeah, so it was great to see a lot of people. Saw the lieutenant governor as well. Mandela had a little conversation with him. So Department of Revenue here, also Barca, he was there supporting Tony Evers. Yeah, so saw lots of old friends.
Excellent. A throwback style show. Let me take one out of context here. Mandela Barnes, the lieutenant governor, great state of Wisconsin. He has been apparently in consideration of running for the U.S. Senate. And if he does, he's trying to beat Ron Johnson, the guy we're going to beat on in the next segment, Dom. But I would just put a little pin on today's date because now that Tony has signed the budget, well, now Tony can go campaign in earnest. And if the lieutenant governor doesn't intend to be the sidecar for the current governor's reelective campaign, any time now forward would be an excellent time to, let's just say make a big announcement on the Devil's Advocate show. Mandela, call us 844-967-2789. I'm not claiming insights. I'm just saying, call us. Dominic, here's where I wanted to start, at least topically. Right-wing anti-vaccine hysteria is increasing, and we're all going to pay the price. Paul Waldman, an opinion piece at the Washington Post. Want to start here. The past few years have made clear that Republican office holders live in constant fear of their party's base. They fear its undying devotion to Donald Trump, its eagerness to purge apostates, and its thirst for physical violence. So even more than their Democratic colleagues, they carefully monitor what their constituents are hearing and believing to determine what right-wing parade they might need to join. Kind of like listening to the police scanners, Dom. When it comes to vaccines against COVID-19, the only thing that can finally deliver us from the pandemic, if we could only push a little harder for a little longer to achieve true herd immunity, GOP lawmakers have until now taken a variety of positions. The extremist nutballs, thinking of you, Ron Johnson, which the party elects with regularity, have been full-on anti-vaccine. Many others have said that the people should get vaccinated, but are quick to add that it's a matter of personal choice. And some Republican governors have implored their citizens to get vaccinated as soon as possible. But the always complex dynamic between the elite and the masses may be shifting as the Biden administration begins a new vaccine push. Cynical provocateurs on the right see personal profit, political or economic, in promoting anti-vaccine hysteria. And the louder it gets, the more incentive the politicians will have to join it. This week, President Biden gave a speech underscoring his commitment to getting more Americans vaccinated. A quote, Dom, "We need to go community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people Joe Biden said this occasion a full-scale freakout across the conservative media, especially Fox News, with hosts railing against vaccine pushers assaulting you in your home. People are up in arms about this, said one host, or at least they will be if we tell them to get up in arms about it. The reactions from the party's lunatic fringe were predictable. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene decried the coming of medical brown shirts, while Rep. Lauren Bobbitt warned that Biden has deployed his needle Nazis to her district. Needle Nazis, I tell you, Dom.
Way to work on that phrasing, Bobbitt.
But
Robert.
You want to take some?
Or, yeah, I'll jump in here. But on Fox Crew, the anti-vaccine hysteria has reached a fever pitch. Charlie Kirk of right-wing youth group Turning Points USA, whose co-founder died of coronavirus-related complications last year, went on Tucker Carlson's show to promote the group's campaign against colleges that will require students to be vaccinated to return to campus in the fall. Quote, it's almost this apartheid-style open-air hostage situation like, oh, yeah, you can have your freedom back if you get the jab, he said. That's exactly right, Carlson responded. Carlson had earlier called vaccine requirements medical Jim Crow. In addition
But none of those things mean anything when put together. I mean, be it Charlie Kirk, apartheid-style open-air hostage situation.
Yeah, but all these things imply government oppression upon its citizens. Apartheid, right? Hostage situation. Freedom, get your freedom back. Medical Jim Crow, right?
What does that mean? Medical Jim Crow. Tucker. Rhymes with Tucker. What does that mean?
You got to ask Tucker, man. And what it means is they're throwing out words that they think other Republicans will have a big, hissy fit about that will keep them enraged and encouraged to not get vaccinated so that they'll stay feisty for the next election, I guess.
There's only one way to truly agitate an audience, Dom. Nickelback. It's a Throwback Thursday. Beats a Nickelback Thursday. Come back with us. We had Devil's Advocates. It could go either way. Could have gone Cyndi Lauper. You don't know. 844-967-2789. We'll talk about Rojo. Unsafe at Finney Street next.
Who's a handsome young brother? Won't you vax that thing up?
I don't know, but I'm suspicious.
If you wanna get sticky and hot, go get the shot.
Has exposed things that didn't need to be exposed.
Nickelback's your favorite band. I apologize to the gentleman.
Why would you criticize one of the greatest bands of the 90s?
Wow.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
Or a mother who's in between jobs
and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
I'm not a big fan of righty-whitey talk radio, but if I'm going to tune in even for an hour a day, I really wish they'd have a live host. They've still got a Rush Limbaugh show, and the guy's been dead for a couple months.
Playing like Best of Dead Rush.
Do you know how weird that is? I make you this promise. After I'm dead, you don't have to keep playing my sound bites. Although I'm hoping you go first.
The Devil's Advocates, weekdays from 2 to 5.
Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody rides for free. Dom and Crute are the devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. John Nichols, the national affairs correspondent with The Nation, going to join us at the bottom of the hour.
Do you think when Ron Johnson drives around, he wears his seatbelt? I mean, freedom.
I hope so, right?
Well, why? It didn't used to be the law here in the state of Wisconsin. And you know what seatbelt compliance rates were then? Like 25, 26%. It's amazing to me. It's not 100% now, but we're approaching 90%. But first you had to change the law. You had to mandate it. It couldn't be about personal responsibility because people would just let themselves splat on the highway. Just in case the car is rolling over, I want the freedom to not have that seatbelt constraining me in the rolling car. I gotta be me.
Well, there's still no helmet laws in the state of Wisconsin, so maybe he's getting a bike next.
You know what? First offense drunk driving is not even a criminal offense in the state of Wisconsin.
The only country in the nation, I believe.
The only country in the nation.
I'm sorry,
yes,
the only state in the nation that does not have a criminal first offense drunk driving law.
I wasn't even correcting you. I was just reinforcing your misstatement. I
Thank you.
had your back, much like a
Is that what
truckster.
it was?
Loyalty over accuracy. Speaking of
that is
loyalty,
a true Trump attribute, certainly.
Dominic, speaking of loyalty over accuracy, got a little op-ed from the guy you used to invite round on this program with some frequency. Ron Johnson, Dom, it's going to have to be in your words.
All right, yes, Fruity.
Friedman.
But okay, so here we go. Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Ron Johnson, just a couple hours ago, an hour and a half ago, opinion piece. Ron Johnson says mainstream media have abused the trust vested in them by the public. The editor's note, though, however, USA Today Network, they had something to say prior to this, Crudy. Perhaps you would read the editor's note as you're the trained mass comm journalistic camera guy on the panel here, so why don't you take a shot at it?
Camera guy, back off, fella. Although I am a better camera guy. I haven't even watched your video of Evers signing. But Wisconsin is publishing, the USA Today Network Wisconsin is publishing Senator Ron Johnson's op-ed in the interest of promoting a healthy dialogue and providing a forum for readers representing a range of perspectives, from fact to fantasy, Dom. But I read on. Our network of 11 newspapers across Wisconsin have a long history of independence, holding politicians of all political parties accountable to the citizens whose views cover all points of political spectrum. This includes Democratic political appointees running the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, sexual harassment allegations against a former Democratic Assembly member from Green Bay, and Johnson's continued public criticism of certified election results, of the archive of medical doctors and public health experts, and of other evidence that runs counter to his goals or those of his backers. We stand by the accuracy, fairness, and integrity of our reporting, somewhat differently than Ron's. To date, Johnson has not asked for any correction of fact in any of the news stories or the editorial he cites in his commentary. Just the facts, according to the Journal Sentinel USA Today editorial board. And then there's Ron's version.
And here is what Ron had to say. It is sad and a troubling reflection on the current state of mainstream media that I find myself having to respond to yet another unwarranted hit piece by the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and its Wisconsin affiliates. I write this response with no guarantee they will run it, but with full assurances that if they do, they will publish an accompanying smear in response. The measure of their misrepresentations and distortions is so extensive that it is impossible to adequately respond in the space they allowed me in the last go-round. So I will make general observations here and present more complete rebuttals on my website. Freedom of speech and a free press are indispensable to liberty and a vibrant democracy. Both are currently imperiled. Freedom of speech is under assault by the growing power, bias, and censorship of social media oligarchies.
Hold up. You can't really censor people that sign up to join a private, let's call it an app like Facebook. I can't censor you because you agreed to do commerce with me or, for this free. But you also signed off most of your rights when you did so.
Yes, the is not the
Facebook
state
the
of
government.
Google, the state of Twitter, the state of Facebook.
Well, according to Trump's lawsuits, they're what? Governmental entities. According to Johnson, they're media oligarchies.
He continues, a free press is threatened by its self-inflicted bias and groupthink and by its alliance with and promotion of one political party over the other. Mainstream media have abused the trust vested in them by the public, writes Senator Ron Johnson. This breach of trust has exacerbated the political divide. Those on the liberal end of the political spectrum can be confident that media will reinforce and promote their beliefs while denigrating the work and working to marginalize the viewpoint of conservatives. Knowing their views will not be presented fairly, conservatives become increasingly frustrated and support candidates who fight back. Instead of using their enormous power in a fair and balanced fashion to allow the public to draw its own conclusions, media advocates and indoctrinates. They may be oblivious to how they are violating the basic tenets of journalism, although I doubt it, but I can assure you conservatives are fully aware. The result of modern yellow journalism is that it exacerbates our national divide. It is far more likely to incite than heal. It amazes me that the liberal mainstream media have declared me a polarizing figure. I certainly was never polarizing when I volunteered my time and efforts to community organizations in Oshkosh prior to entering the political realm. I don't see how anyone could look at what we've accomplished with the Joseph Project and then label me a racist and say I'm polarizing. I'm not bombastic and I don't engage in personal political attacks. Instead, I tell the truth. Oftentimes, it is truth the liberal mainstream media does not want to hear. It counters their narrative, and they don't want to allow it because they are allies of the Democratic Party. They're also on board with the Democrats' goal of controlling both of Wisconsin's U.S. Senate seats, so they seize any opportunity where they believe they can damage me politically.
Dom, here's his final sentence. They hope that truth can and will prevail. That's all our hopes, Ron. Come back with us, John Nichols from The Nation, our good friend.
I don't like you because you're dangerous.
This isn't very nice, is it?
Sounds nice. It's not nice. It's not good.
It's nice.
I don't know, but I'm...
You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM. And that's pretty cool.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County need your help. Our annual bike event is scheduled for July 17th. We need hundreds of individual riders and donors to encourage participation in pledges. We will be giving away 2 Crazy Lenny electric bikes, 1 e-bike for a participant and 1 for individual that pledges to support a rider. Come ride for the Boys and Girls Club or make a pledge at BGC-DC.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Michael Avenatti was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. The brash California lawyer who once represented Stormy Daniels in lawsuits against President Donald Trump was convicted of trying to extort up to $25 million from Nike by threatening the company with bad publicity. It's unrelated to the Donald Trump lawsuit. President Biden says U.S. troops will be out of Afghanistan by August 31st, ending a nearly 20-year war. At the White House, the president said the U.S. did what they wanted to do in Afghanistan, and it's now up to leadership there.
They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place. The question is, will they generate the kind of cohesion to do it?
The president says he didn't trust the Taliban, but trusted the capacity of the Afghan military to defend the government. Meantime, the Taliban seized another key Afghan border crossing, this time with Iran. It had previously seized crossings with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea, What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you hear My Computer Career ads and think, I don't know anything about computers? Well, you don't have to. Before starting, many graduates could turn a computer on and off. And that's it. Now they're IT pros. You could do it too. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new life in as little as 4 months. Grants covering up to 53% of the cost are available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's My Computer Career.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway expressed her disappointment in legislative Republicans singling out Madison and Milwaukee by cutting the state funding for transit services in the state's two largest cities in half. Mayor Rhodes Conway hopes Governor Tony Evers will address that provision with a line-item veto in the state budget or use American Rescue Plan funds if a partial veto is not possible. The Climate Defense Project filed a complaint against the UW Foundation with the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions, alleging the foundation's investments in fossil fuel companies is against the foundation's mission statement and illegal under Wisconsin law. The Madison Night Market will return to downtown this year and will now run along State Street for the first time. With approval from the city yesterday, the market will return on August 19th and be held a total of 5 times before the end of the year. You're listening to Devil Radio.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a Throwback Thursday edition. Dom, a fine guest, joining us right now live via phone. He's a good friend of ours. He's John Nichols from The Nation. John, was this playing on the 8-track in your first car once upon a time?
Of course. Absolutely. Although I think, in fairness, I think I had to grow into this. The truth is that probably, man, we were very heavy on Black Sabbath.
Man.
Yeah, very heavy on Black Sabbath. Blue Oyster Cult's got a good lot of play, especially their first live album, as I recall.
And John,
we were leaving Union Grove High School at lunch break to race around the county.
And what would you drive around in and play, Ozzy on the 8-track of?
Green Camaro.
A Camaro.
Not a pretty green, though. It was more of
a forest green.
Come on, man.
No, it wasn't that good. It was more of an industrial green.
John, I was driving around in a powder puff blue AMC Hornet, envious of your ugly green Camaro, man.
The Hornet is I think we can both agree that there was a blessing in not having a pacer.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Hey, buddy, at least I am not the human personification of the Chevy Corvair. I'm going to leave that title, the unsafe at any speed, to U.S. Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. John, you wrote something about Rojo this week. He's a bit of a menace, is he not, sir?
Oh, he's dangerous at this point. The truth of the matter is that for Wisconsinites who are kind of used to the guy, there was a point where, you would watch a YouTube video of him now and again just to see him try and get a sentence out, right? I mean, it was amusing. And I understand that. But at this point, two things are true. One, he's become more of a political careerist, right? So he's gotten a little better at actually communicating his message. It's just that his message now is flat out conspiracy theory. It's off the wall extremism, but not an extremism that's rooted in an ideology. It's an extremism rooted in just false premises. And where it becomes dangerous, of course, is when he starts talking about vaccines and diseases and things like that, and frankly, getting it wrong.
And John, I'll be damned if I can figure out what changed in Ron Johnson, because he used to come around.
He used to like you guys.
He used to be country club cordial, bring beer, some good stuff and some stuff that Don would drink. And, you know, somewhere around the election time frame last year, John, he went full on Trumpster. And he had always been a little bit of a reserve Trumpster, publicly supporting the chief, but privately saying, I hate him tweeting, I hate this, I hate that about him. But now he's fully embracive. It's almost like he is the new agitator in chief on the Hill.
Well, there's no doubt of that. I mean, he is. Well, I think in fairness, it's sort of a competition between him and Rand Paul. And when you're campaigning against Rand Paul for the most out there, you are in, some pretty fine company without a doubt. But the interesting thing about Ron Johnson is that he used to, he was kind of a like real low rent Paul Ryan. He was a guy who had read, at least a couple pages of Ayn Rand's, books, Fountainhead and stuff like that. And so he thought of himself as, had some ideas. They weren't his ideas. They were the ideas of a Russian immigrant who wrote, supposedly libertarian books. But, that was where he was coming from. And it didn't make him useful, but it also didn't make him usually all that harmful, right? He was kind of a goofy character who had some out there ideas, obsessed with, again, Ayn Rand and stuff like that. But, when it came time to vote, he kind of just did what Mitch McConnell told him to do. And that's damaging, but it, didn't make him that different than other Republicans. Now, in the last couple of years, I mean, it's clearly, he was probably more influenced by Trump than anybody else in the Senate. He has become someone who really relishes that sort of Trump style thinking. Not communications, by the way. He still doesn't communicate like Trump. He doesn't have the flair, the theater, or anything like that. But it's the ideas. And weirdly enough, when you separate, Trumpian ideas from Trump and put him into a guy who, is just an okay communicator, they oddly become more frightening. Because it's like he's calmly suggesting, oh, well, maybe the vaccines don't work, or he's calmly, coming up with all these conspiracy theories and holding hearings on them and stuff like that. And I got to tell you, I think he's kind of, he's kind of scaring some people right now.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's our pal, John Nichols, national affairs correspondent with The Nation. He wrote a piece, we published it yesterday on the Facebook page, entitled Ron Johnson Needs to Come with a Warning Label. And John, I'm with you there, man. In your piece, you mentioned, and I think this happens quite a bit, looking around, the nation at Republicans, they play the victim when they're criticized, and he's continuing to do that. And he did that today. We read a little bit of a piece of an op-ed he published, or at least was published in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. John, did you have a chance to see it? Essentially, Ron Johnson thinks the mainstream media, I'm not saying I'm media, I'm not the mainstream media perhaps, but mainstream media is the reason why we have this divide. It's their alliances with, the liberals on the Democratic Party and choosing one side over the other. And that's the problem. John, is this a continuation of the victimhood?
I don't know if it's a Pinot or a Rosé, a red or a white, but it's a fine wine. There is no doubt of that. And Mitch McConnell, has got to, be impressed by his little protege, Ron Johnson, in this one, because the notion that Ron Johnson, who is, spouting conspiracy theories, making accusations, saying really some of the wilder things to come out of the mouth of a U.S. senator in the better part of 70 years, is offended because people have compared him with Joe McCarthy. I mean, which is a part of his little essay there. The fact of the matter is, his piece that he wrote for the Journal Sentinel confirms the extent that he really has become the modern Joe McCarthy. Because, of course, McCarthy would spout conspiracy theories, say things that were completely unfounded, that were false, And then when the media pointed that out, he would scream, the liberal media, they're out to get me. I mean, McCarthy was the pioneer of that. He was Trump before Trump. And to have Ron Johnson seriously suggest, oh, wow, I'm offended to be compared with Joe McCarthy. Come on, Ron. You are Joe McCarthy. He is the modern embodiment of McCarthy. Maybe not as sharp, not as, as quick-witted, but still, he's playing the McCarthy game of saying extreme, crazy, dangerous things right before he has to decide whether to run for another term. That's the same thing Joe McCarthy did, clearly for political reasons, trying to gin up his base, trying to get himself a little bit better positioned politically. And unlike McCarthy, who, at least had a little bit of humor about it, Ron Johnson seems to be genuinely offended that anyone would call him out. It's sort of like, I mean, really? If you read the whole piece, it's amazing. It's like, I'm a nice guy. I don't say things in bold or interesting ways. I'm barely worth listening to. Why are people offended by me?
John, we had Ron Johnson in studio, long interview, like 3 segments, 45 minutes, something like that, in Milwaukee the day after he voted to acquit Donald Trump in the first impeachment vote. And,
January
he was
or so, or February.
Early February, right after the State of the Union timeframe. And he was proud of his vote. He certainly felt the impeachment of Trump was politically motivated. But I did ask him about history. How do you think your gravestone's going to read, Senator? And I would wonder, John, and I'm not wishing harm upon Rojo, maybe electoral harm, but not physical harm.
No, of course not.
But how do you think a guy like Rojo's gravestone's going to read?
Well, he's going to be around for a long time. That kind of mean doesn't go away. So he's gonna last. He's a rich, privileged man. Let
me restate. How do you think history will remember the antics of Ron Johnson?
History? You mean after he's defeated in 2022? Well, that's a different thing. Look, I think that he will, interestingly enough, be immediately cut loose by his fellow Republicans. And that's going to be the funnest part of it, right? Because they did the same thing to McCarthy. When McCarthy, kind of crashed and burned in the mid-50s, suddenly no Republican knew the guy. It's like, Joe who? What? I mean, oh, man, he was crazy. He was bad. He went off the deep end. And so they all distanced themselves. And so what's going to happen with Ron Johnson is that, all the people that he thinks are his friends are going to be nowhere to be found, right? Because he will be the example of the guy who went to such extremes, went so far off the deep end that he was unelectable. Now, the fact is, the rest of the party does the same stuff, right? I mean, it's not just Ron Johnson. He is part and parcel of something much broader, but he says it and does it in more jarring and unsettling ways. And so as a result, history is going to remember him as a conspiracy theorist, as a guy who was kind of way out there and somehow got into the U.S. Senate. And so I'm not as concerned about how history thinks of Ron Johnson. I'm a little more concerned about Wisconsin because, too many more of these kinds of senators come along, we're going to start to get a reputation as a state that isn't a very good judge of character.
John Nichols from The Nation magazine. John, I know you're going to stick around for another segment. So before we go to break, I want to throw this one out to you. The social media oligarchies that Ron Johnson's referred to in his opinion piece. I noticed you also had some criticism of perhaps the social media companies. And I just want to get your sense on that, John. I mean, I understand what people are concerned about, but, what about MySpace or Vine or Friendster or AOL? I mean, these were huge, companies at one time that are really no longer there, except for perhaps a few attorneys using the AOL emails on Trump's filings. But beyond that, John, the Republicans and certainly Trump in his filing and their attorneys say, well, essentially Facebook is a state-owned character, a state player, and they, as such, then are limited in their ability to protect their own free speech and allow his free speech. John, do you see some commonalities with your criticism of big tech and, Trump and Ron Johnson's?
Somewhere in that question,
somewhere
I got a hint that I'm supposed to get rid of my Hotmail account. Is this what you're telling me?
No, not at all, man. You're good to go.
I'm out of touch.
I still have one too, John. That's how my agent gets a hold of me.
I just wanted to clarify because it's good for sending big files, But look, I think that whenever anything gets so big that it, is sort of the dominant player, and that it cannot be effectively, it can't be an effective competition, right? That it becomes the platform that everything, circles around. You have to be concerned about that. And that is not a left or a right thing. That's a fundamental reality. Milton Friedman, of all people, very conservative guy, used to have critiques of bigness when it got to the level of monopoly, right? And so too, obviously, did Robert M. La Follette. And so you can go from left and right there. The counsel that I would give, though, is that maybe I'm cynical here, and you can tell me if I am, but I don't think that Donald Trump or Ron Johnson are really concerned about the bigness of Facebook or places like that. I don't think that's their worry. In fact, you saw some of the, very Trumpian Republicans, when they had a chance to go after some of the big guys on this, they were against it.
John, you got to hold that thought. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Sorry, buddy.
What has happened to us? What has happened to us?
I'm not a climate change denier.
The man's a menace.
Social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates, inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
According to the Federalist Waller account being read into the congressional record by Ron Johnson, if this is just a small number of instigators in 100,000 true Trump-loving people, why did the Trumpsters stop the instigators? Why wouldn't you say, hey, they're not like us, let's stop those guys, instead of joining them in breaking into the U.S. Capitol?
I really believe I'd run into, even if I didn't have a weapon.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Bring it? Oh, it's already been brought in. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, continuing our conversation with John Nichols, national affairs correspondent with The Nation. John, before we were so rudely interrupted by a commercial break, we were discussing the similarities and perhaps differences of criticism between right and left with regards to the giant tech media oligarchies, as Ron Johnson puts it. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, you just cut me off right before I got to my ultimate point there. No, basic concept is that I don't think that Ron Johnson and Donald Trump are against bigness. In fact, Donald Trump's whole life, his whole career was about getting big, right? Making more money doing that. And Ron Johnson also sort of almost a, like bleary-eyed capitalist. So I don't think they're that bothered with bigness. I think what they're bothered with is that this is something they can't control. And they don't like the fact that they can't tell Facebook or somebody else what to do, that somebody like Facebook can tell them what to do. And that is not a very noble reason for, wanting to break it up or wanting to do things with it. But it is still one that we have to, keep in our head. We have to understand that concept, because if there is an entity that is so powerful, it can tell you whether you can communicate on that entity, and that entity is dominant, it's a monopolistic entity, then we all have to be concerned about that, right? Because at the end of the day, what's the likelihood that it's going to be always capitalists, like wealthy, powerful, connected people that get shut down, versus the likelihood that it's going to be working class, radical, political people that get shut down? I'm going to, at the end of the day, say that all of these institutions they're too big, they have too much power, and there is a very good argument for figuring out ways that we can either have more competition, right, or to make these platforms public, right? But one way or the other, it's not about censoring. It's not about saying, oh, you're not nice to Donald Trump, so you can't exist. It's the opposite of that. It's about saying, we want to have the boldest, freest communication in this country. And so as a result, we want to make sure that nobody's got such dominant control over it that that they can shut down one set of thinkers versus another.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates. We got the finest of guests. You can find him at Nichols Uprising on his Getter account.
John. I'm not going to be able to get on that account now.
John, let me ask you quickly, though. Different perspective on this big tech lawsuit rolled out by Donald Trump. First,
I think, by the way, Trump's lawsuit is a joke.
Well, I concur. I see very little merit there, and I think most of it's been litigated prior and resolved.
That's right.
But first and foremost, it's a grift. It's a money-raising scheme. But secondarily, John, don't you think this is sort of an effort to respond to the Trump org indictments? I mean, Trump's old tricks were, if somebody sues you, you counter-sue them.
You double sue them.
You can't counter-sue the Manhattan DA, so you go after a bigger target still. You go sue Facebook, Google, Twitter, and MySpace or whatever.
Here's the way to understand it. That's exactly right. This is not a new reality. Remember, we were talking about Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy always attacked the press, right? He was always mad at the press. Why? Not because he hated publicity. Joe McCarthy loved publicity, but he didn't want to be exposed, right? He didn't want the truth to come out about it. And so one of the things that has been sort of a constant, especially with a lot of Republicans, starting with Joe McCarthy, but then certainly with Richard Nixon, even more so with Ronald Reagan, and dramatically more so with Dick Cheney and now Donald Trump, is you attack the media because you don't want people to believe what they're being told, right? You don't want them to believe the facts that are coming out. And the way that you undermine the facts is to attack the media in general, to say that it is some sort of big entity that's always hating on you and that is always out to get you. And Trump has taken this to the next level. He's taken it to attacking social media platforms because he's smart. Give him his due. The fact of the matter is that social media now is a dominant form of communication. But he's really doing the same thing Joe McCarthy did when he attacked the Capitol Foundings in the 1950s.
John, the press loves Trump back, at least for the ratings. Since Trump has left the daily front page, the news cycle, media ratings across the spectrum are way down. This conflict is good for ratings. Do you think the media does have some incentive to kind of stir the pot, John?
Look, this is a huge problem. I wrote a piece for The Nation about it back in 2016. It was clear that the media was making Trump, and even had, a CBS executive say, well, Trump may be bad for America, but he's very good for CBS. And so the reality is that media has been obsessed with Trump. The thing to understand about this is that obsession is rooted in media's laziness. And this is a really big deal. Media institutions don't want to spend the money and hire the amount of staff that is needed to really cover a broad array of stories. And so Trump is cheap, right? He's the easiest date for media. You know, you just put him on and everybody's like, what did he say? Right? And this is the thing to understand. The obsession with Donald Trump isn't about, you know, Donald Trump per se. It's just that he is such a cheap, easy, theatrical character that media defaults to him. And so there is a place here for a critique of media. And that critique of media is that it genuinely needs to figure out how to go and cover more issues, more things that are going on. And unfortunately, in these times, that means you got to spend money. And an awful lot of our media companies are having a hard time getting money because advertising is hard to get. There's no question of that. And also that, frankly, they don't want to give up their profits to the point where, you know, like they can't live on the big house on the top of the hill. And so we have a problem in this country. And it's one that we ought to be thinking about a lot more deeply. It does have something to do with Trump. There's no question of that. But it also has something much deeper to do with how do you fund media? How do you make a functional media in the 21st century?
I don't know, John. If I ever figure it out, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I know. I think you guys have been working on that project here, haven't you?
We're like a decade in, John.
Yeah.
John Nichols.
I write books about it, by the way, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So there you go.
Well, you know, if I could write books, John, I would write books, but my OCD prevents me from writing down so many words at the same time. It'd take me the rest of my natural born life to write a pamphlet. John Nichols from The Nation. Thank God deadlines, right, John? Deadline pressure. That's what you need.
That's the answer. Get you through everything. Got me through high school.
Appreciate you coming around. Cheating off the smart girl next to me got me through high school.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Come back with us. We'll look at your paper if you're the smartest kid in class. 844-967-2789. Hour 2 is next. Oh, yeah. And Mark Pocan, my congressman.
Get her. That was your whole plan. Get her.
Who's a handsome young brother? Won't you vax that thing up?
Don't ask me to get inside the mind of a liberal, progressive, socialist Marxist.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Hey, how's it going? Come down to 550 State Street. At Knuckleheads, we're your one-stop shop for all your CBD, glass, hookah, cigar needs. We got deals like buy 4, get 1 free on papers, cones, CBD carts. Too many things to list. Call 608-284-0151. Ask a friendly neighborhood Knucklehead any questions. Or check out the website, knuckleheadcbd.com. Knuckleheads at 550 State Street. We got you covered. I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there.
Madison. You say what? Each weeknight from 5 to 6, don't miss out on a single day of the Earl Ingram Show right here on Devil Radio 92.7 FM, 1580 AM.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden says the U.S. military mission in Afghanistan will end August 31st.
The drawdown is proceeding in a secure and orderly way, prioritizing the safety of our troops as they depart.
At the White House, the president said the goal in Afghanistan has been achieved.
Nearly 20 years of experience has shown us that the current security situation only confirms that just one more year fighting in Afghanistan is not a solution, but a recipe for being there indefinitely.
The president says he doesn't trust the Taliban, but he trusts the capacity of the Afghan military. A senior official in Haiti tells the AP 2 men believed to be Haitian Americans, one of them purportedly a former bodyguard at the Canadian embassy in Port-au-Prince, have been arrested in connection with the assassination of Haiti's president. A Chicago man has been charged in connection with the shooting of 3 undercover law enforcement officers. 2.5 years is the prison sentence for Michael Avenatti. He's the lawyer who represented Stormy Daniels against President Donald Trump. Avenatti was convicted of trying to extort up to $25 million from Nike by threatening the company with bad publicity. Rescue workers now focused on finding remains instead of survivors in the rubble of a Florida condominium collapse, paused briefly atop the pile to mark the 2-week anniversary of the disaster. The governor of Missouri, Mike Parson, doesn't want government employees going door to door in his state to urge people to get vaccinated. Missouri is dealing with a spike in coronavirus cases. Press Secretary Jen Psaki at the White House says door-to-door efforts are working elsewhere.
Alabama, the adult vaccination rate increased by 3.9%. 149,000 additional adults got their first dose in June. In Florida, the adult vaccination rate increased by 4.4%.
No fans at the Olympics. Tokyo is under a coronavirus state of emergency. The games start in about 2 weeks. This is AP News.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you hear My Computer Career ads and think, I don't know anything about computers? Well, you don't have to. Before starting, many graduates could turn a computer on and off. And that's it. Now they're IT pros. You could do it too. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new life in as little as 4 months. Grants covering up to 53% of the cost are available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's My Computer Career.
This is Chad Spate. Are you thinking about improving or expanding your home? At Chad's Design Build, we're committed to making your home comfortable, healthy, attractive, durable, and sustainable. In fact, those commitments spell our name. And we deliver these services with our outstanding team of professionals who will respect you and your home. Visit our website at chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more about how we are building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
This is Rocker. I'm sitting on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies on East Wash, and I'm enjoying a floral-forward Manhattan called As Long as There's Whiskey. It features Rocker Rye whiskey with a hint of blueberry, a touch of smoky Amaro, and it's finished off with St. Germain. It's a Rocker Rye Manhattan at Sal's Tomato Pies on Livingston. Ask for it by name, As Long as There's Whiskey. You can also enjoy Rocker Spirits at the Wisco and Tiny's Tap on Willie Street. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County need your help. Our annual bike event is scheduled for July 17th. We need hundreds of individual riders and donors to encourage participation in pledges. We will be giving away 2 Crazy Lenny electric bikes, 1 e-bike for a participant and 1 for individual that pledges to support a rider. Come ride for the Boys and Girls Club or make a pledge at bgcdc.org.
Welcome to Family Feud on Max Inc. Radio. I'm your host, Rob Roberts. Rocker, we asked 100 Madisonians, what is the favorite part of Max Inc. Radio?
Oh, that's easy, Rob. Live music performed in the Devil's Lair every Saturday night.
The survey says, number 2. So close, Rocker. Jimmy K, for the win. What is your favorite part of Max Inc. Radio?
Local music.
That's right, Jimmy. Listen to local music every Saturday from 6 p.m. to midnight on Devil Radio 92.7 FM.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. The Wisconsin Army National Guard will deploy roughly 125 troops to the southern border this fall, according to a mission ordered by President Joe Biden. The Wisconsin Guard will join 22 other states in working with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection for close to a year. The troops will be mobilized under federal control but are expected to assist with non-law enforcement activities. According to an aide, Governor Tony Evers did not play a role in authorizing the deployment and does not have the authority to reject or rescind the order. In 2019, Evers recalled Wisconsin Guard troops that were on the border, stating it was the federal government's responsibility to protect the nation's borders. Forecast of cloudy skies throughout the day with light and variable winds at a high of 69 degrees. Partly cloudy skies expected this evening with an overnight low of 54 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a Thursday edition. I can't believe the week. It's flying by. And Dom, we got another fine guest here on a Throwback Thursday. He is my congressman, our friend, Mark Pocan. Mark calling in from the district. Mark, how you been?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, very good, guys. Glad to be here. I'm doing well.
Well, Mark, I understand you're doing a little driving today, and I gotta begs the question, sir, is it still infrastructure week? Because driving around in Wisconsin over the Scott holes, can be a little tough on the auto, sir.
Yeah, I think we're going to be able to get something done. Infrastructure and hopefully a broader definition of infrastructure as well. Not only to get the economy going post-COVID, but also, as you mentioned, we got a lot of Scott holes out there, across the country. Apparently there's as prevalent as banging your head on a cabinet and going bald. I don't know. But there's a lot of work that has to be done, from roads and bridges to schools to broadband, water delivery systems, energy grid, and then we want to do some human infrastructure too. And I think there's still a very good chance of getting that done.
Well, Mark, I'm only going to blame the former gubernator for the Scott holes here in Wisconsin, but let me ask you, sir, infrastructure. Do we need bipartisan Republican support in the Senate side? Aren't eventually the Democrats going to have to go this one alone?
Well, that's why I think what you're going to have is two bills, and Nancy Pelosi, I think, has been abundantly clear to both the Biden administration as well as to the Democrats in the Senate that we're only doing bills together. There's two bills. One will be this so-called bipartisan agreement, slightly scaled back infrastructure bill, and the other will be a bigger, broader bill that'll go through reconciliation that'll only require 50 votes, but will have a lot of other infrastructure priorities taken care of, especially human infrastructure. I think you're still going to see both of those happen. But, for those people who think it's crucial to have bipartisan support on a bill, we'll have one. And for those people who think it's crucial to actually get something done, we'll have something. And out of the two, I think you'll have some serious investments that are long overdue.
Mark, my understanding is perhaps some of the more progressive folks might not be down with the program. I mean, there's not a whole lot of room maneuvering here. Do you think the caucus will be able to stay together to pass the bipartisan bill?
Well, that's why Nancy said they're going to have to go through together, right? So we're going to get some big stuff done because we need to. The moment is there, and she knows where her members are at. But then, there's some members who just want to be able to go back home and say, I hugged a Republican today. Aren't I great? And, we're going to take care of that aspect of it too. But more importantly is we're going to get something done, because at the end of the day, that's what people really want from us. Not just a bunch of, posturing and debate. They actually want us to invest in the country. And I think, Nancy has been very clear. I think she's on the right side of this, and she understands what votes she needs from progressives. So I think you'll have both bills moving through.
Mark, obviously we live in a state. I live in the, the metro part of the state, but it's a very rural state outside of the metros. And I drive 30 minutes from Madison, and I find, even the cell phone coverage is terrible. We need investment in broadband infrastructure. Mark, is that in the bipartisan bill, only in the Democratic bill? And is it the responsibility of the federal government to build out infrastructure like broadband in a state like Wisconsin?
That's under the current rules we have. We need to put the investment out there. The problem is, in the majority of states, including Wisconsin, we pretty much have a system that's set up for the telecommunication companies. And unless they get some free government money, they won't expand to people who are bluntly less profitable, right? But at the same time, you can't have people not connected. In the last year, we learned this more than ever, that, if you're not connected, it's like not having electricity or water in your house, right? You need it for working from home, you need it for your children in school, etc. So yes, we're going to have dollars to do that, but ultimately, I think, also, I hope at some point we will help overturn some laws, including in Wisconsin, that make it difficult to expand broadband on your own as a community. I live in a rural town of 830 some people, and we, until about 3 or 4 years ago, didn't have broadband until, a telecommunications company got a bunch of free money from the government. But we could have formed a co-op, but we couldn't under state law. We could have gotten it from a neighboring community of Mount Horeb or Black Earth, but we couldn't under current law. And there's a lot of things I think that we could do to make states reverse these special interest heavy laws around broadband that also would go really far to making sure that more people were connected.
Mark, whenever I hear there's not enough money for that, progressive guys, I'd like to think like you and I think, well, yeah, we do. We always have enough money for the military. Mark, I don't think it's necessarily a unique proposal, but you have strongly proposed reducing the funding to the military. Explain what you'd like to see if you would, Mark.
Sure. Well, I mean, when you look at how much we spend on defense and how little review it actually has by Congress, much less an audit or any accountability, it's pretty astounding. In the last budget, we were at $740 billion in a year. That was a 20% increase over the Trump administration's 4 years at a time of relative peace. It made no sense. And, at least to Joe Biden's credit, when he had the opportunity, he increased discretionary non-defense spending 16%. At the same time, he increased defense spending 1.7%. But for perspective, that 1.7% increase is 150% of the entire CDC budget, the Center for Disease Control. I think anyone could tell you the biggest threat to this country in the last year and a half has been COVID-19, not another country. And yet the increase alone is more than 50% more than what we spend on Center for Disease Control. So, I think many of us would argue you could take much of the money that just goes to defense contractors and private firms with no accountability and invest that in things that actually help people, like housing and education and healthcare, and people would have much greater benefit. And we don't need to have a bigger budget than the next 10 countries combined. There's no reason for that. And other than for the military industrial complex to be very profitable, we could really cut back seriously without cutting back on the defense of this country.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Congressman Mark Pocan joining us on the phone. Well, Mark, a couple of questions I have for you. I mean, obviously today we saw the president talk on leaving Afghanistan, wrapping up that mission. And certainly I would expect that, some operational costs are going to go down if we're no longer, warring in another country. There should be some funds eased up for that. The other one, the Pentagon releases their UFO report. We have all sorts of things flying around this world, apparently, that we don't know what it is. Mark, a couple of questions there. Do you think we need to spend more money to investigate these phenomena flying around our country and the world? And do you think that we should be able to take some of that money we've been spending on missions in Afghanistan and the Middle East and reallocate those funds?
Yeah, so to the first one, I mean, why don't we just tax those UFOs, right? I think that might be the real answer.
Yeah, but good luck collecting.
Well, maybe we get Bitcoin. I don't know how they fund things, but I think that is just kind of an interesting story out there right now. But I don't think there's a lot of government resources going into unidentified flying objects. But to the other question, if we actually pulled all the troops, which we're not, we're very close to pulling all of them, but we're going to keep a minimal presence. If we returned everything back by, I think the second year from now, would be about a $50 billion savings up to that, which again, given what I just explained to you in defense spending, would be significant and could be reinvested in things that would actually be priorities that benefit more people. And look, Afghanistan, has been not the proudest moment, I think, for whether it be our country or other countries that have tried to get involved. And we can't do that across the world everywhere. We need to bring our troops home. So Joe Biden did the right thing, but there should be a peace dividend out of that. And that peace dividend should go somewhere other than just other defense spending. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out how to grab that and provide that to invest in other things.
Mark, wanted to talk about the pandemic. We'd like to think it's behind us, but obviously we've got variants and they're getting more virulent. Mark, how does the president convince the hesitant to just go get a shot?
He's done his best, right? And he's trying to, explain the problem with the variants. I mean, what we're seeing, you saw, I think it was announced today or yesterday that our daily death rate is 0 in Wisconsin right now because people are getting shots. But with Delta and some of the other variants, and there'll be additional variants until we get more people across the planet vaccinated, it's going to be tougher and tougher potentially. And, we're finally reopening in Wisconsin and Dane County, especially. Dane County, last time I looked now, about a week and a half ago, 80% of people over 18 have been vaccinated. And that's why we're able to reopen and do this safely. If we don't get vaccines and these variants take more hold, we're going to get back to exactly what we just went through. And I don't think anyone wants to do that again. So, I think he's just trying to get the information out there. He's done an amazing job, I think, in getting shots in arms. And now he's doing what he needs to, which is let's get more vaccines around the world. Because if we don't solve this globally, we're not solving this in the United States.
Mark, we got 1 minute left. Any comments on the January 6th Select Committee, the bipartisan efforts by Nancy Pelosi to include Lynn Cheney?
I think it's fine as one of her picks, and someone who at least is speaking the truth on this issue. We'll see who the Republicans recommend. Hopefully, it's not people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. That would be a little crazy, but I wouldn't put it past them since they don't take things seriously anymore. But we've got to figure out exactly what happened and who might have been involved in helping put this together, because it was our first attack in this country in 200 years. And I think most people get it, except for people who have those red Chinese-made Make America Great hats.
Mark Pocan, my fine congressman's got a town hall tonight at 6:00. Google it. It's worth the Google. Thank you, Mark, for coming around on the Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Wisconsin Republicans have put forth a legislative proposal.
Oh, they're going to take the Medicaid money for like $2 billion?
No, not that one. That one's highly popular.
Oh, they're getting behind voting rights. That's awesome.
No, they've perhaps gotten differing advocacy on voting.
They finally come around on some gun safety legislation.
No, thoughts and prayers. That's our plan.
Well, then what have they been doing then?
Legalize marijuana. No.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Bullshit, nothing you like it.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Senator Ron Johnson talking about staying out of bars. How does that pair with your thought that schools should reopen in the fall? You got a room full of school students or a room full of bar patrons. What's the difference?
Because schools, students, it's rare, very rare to have them have a very serious medical effect from COVID.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
You shouldn't have older school teachers or school teachers with some of the comorbidities.
You make me dizzy, running circles in my head. One of these days I'll chase you down.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open for you, our fair audience. You can join us, talk or text toll free at 844-967-2789.
I'm sorry, man. I wasn't listening. Did you think our most recent fine guest, my
I
Congressman
saved
Mark
that for you,
Pocan?
Rudy.
All right. Mark, thanks for coming around. Always great to hear from our congressman. Again, he's got a town hall at 6 o'clock, and he's including a local elected who's a friend of ours, Francesca Hong. She is featured right here on Saturday. She does Sharp Elbows. Francesca, an elected state assembly person, she will also participate in the town hall with Congressman Mark Pocan at 6 tonight. And I told him with a little bit of notice next time, come on, man, we throw that stuff on the radio. So anyways, they're taking that under consideration for
under
next
advisement. Thank you, Congressman Pocan. Always fun.
Certainly. Thank you, Mark. Now he mentioned Marjorie Trader Green, and I know probably why he calls her that. She betrayed the president yesterday. Did you see that?
I did not.
And I mean former.
Hey. Okay. Well, you said the president, so I assumed it was Biden. So
Trader Green betrayed Donald Trump.
Oh,
she came out unequivocally and said Donald Trump will not be reinstated to the presidency on August 13th, despite the protestations of Mike Lindell. I know.
Why? That's totally unacceptable. Blasphemy. Can we ban her?
I would like to, but
I know what I saw.
But my question is, what do you do when even the fringe lunatics at the party start saying, well, that's not going to happen? Because that's all she did. She spoke a truth, a modest truth. There is no means by which the former is going to become the future, at least not through reinstatement. Maybe if he won an election, doesn't end up in prison, but setting all of that aside now,
right?
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, that's not.
Well, I mean, if she said it, it must be true.
She's going to be primaried how do you primary a fringer? I mean, from the fringier fringe of the right. I mean, from the QAnon fringe, beyond the QAnon fringe. She is the QAnon queen. You're going to have to find like a QAnon princess to go to potentially primary her. Because once Trump turns on her, what you got left?
Well, what's right at QR? Aranon. Get the Aranons on, man. They're farther right than the QAnons.
844-967-2789. Love it when the audience participates in our speculation here on the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's why they call her Marjorie Trader Green. She betrayed Trump. Dick from Madison. Welcome back, Dick. What do you got today?
Hey, Dick.
Well, why don't they send Michelle Bachmann down there? She get all crazier, possibly.
Ooh, that's a blast from the past from a Throwback Thursday, man. I'd like to see that fight.
She was the original Crazy Eyes, was she not? I mean, before
take your iron rod and smash.
Before there was an Orange is a New Black, and before who is it on the Bucks with the Crazy Eyes? Porter?
Yes, I think so.
Bobby Portis.
Yeah.
Portis, my bad. He's got the Crazy Eyes. But Michelle Bachmann, she was the original Crazy Eyes.
Well, you were talking about Ron Johnson earlier. I mean, you sum him up this way, in my opinion. extremism in the defense of craziness is his vice. I mean, him and Ron Paul, they're both, in my opinion, ranging under a fly ball that hasn't been hit somewhere in the twilight zone. They're both nuts. How can you even... The latest stuff from him, I mean, and he still hasn't announced, but we all know, come on, guys, he's running, isn't he?
Run.
Say so?
I don't know if anyone, Trump is very excited about the prospective candidacy of Ron Johnson. I got to tell you, quite frankly, Democrats here in the state of Wisconsin, Dick, they're lining up to run against Ron Johnson. I think everyone on both the right and the left can't wait to see the, take 3 of the Ron Johnson on the ballot.
Ron.
The big thing I'm waiting for, though, to kind of kick the last part of summer off, is when we had this big tour with the Trumpster and Bill O'Reilly. Won't that be special?
Well, Bill O'Reilly interviewed Trump yesterday. A very bang interview. And I only know this because I heard Bill O'Reilly on somebody else's show. Whoever they got filling in for Dead Rush now in the midday, Clay and Buck, had Bill Papa Bear on to brag about the fact that he got the interview with Donald J. Trump.
We'll do it live. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, that guy. Thanks for the call, Dick. 844-967-2789. Let's squeeze one more in this segment. Mark from the Sack, it's you. Welcome. What do you got?
Yeah, it's really rich Ron Johnson complaining about the media not giving the right enough attention because they give nothing but attention to them whenever they get up and blather whatever current nonsense that they're claiming. And, this was to Dom's credit. For God's sakes, Dom has abandoned a lot of the libertarian stuff because he actually realizes that some of this quote-unquote socialist spending is actually more budgetary responsible than not spending the money at all, because sometimes spending the money actually saves you money in the long run.
I think he just called you a communist.
Thanks for the call, Mark. Listen, I still appreciate and respect the individualism. I still carry some of that around, Mark, but I certainly understand. We live, we live in a society, right? And hopefully it's a civilized society. And the Ayn Rand thing, this whole, it's a fictional book. It's a story. I really love Star Wars, but, I'm not role-playing or believing everything that Lucas writes or that Spielberg produces.
It is political. You're a communist.
It's fiction. Come on, guys.
I love the fact that Ron Johnson writes an op-ed and says, you probably won't publish this op-ed, which they publish. He didn't stick a message in a bottle and throw it in the lake.
Well, he tells the truth, like on climate change.
Or Fox News, because he has the platforms.
I don't believe in evolution. I believe in God.
I am the chosen one.
What did you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it?
Suburban women, will you please like me?
I know what I saw.
This is the radio station you were looking for. Devil Radio 92.7. It surrounds us. It penetrates us. It binds the world together.
Help me, Devil Radio. You're my only hope.
Lynn, it's time for a rebrand. You sell the highest quality electric bikes made by the best manufacturers from around the world, but I think it's time to retire the crazy.
I don't know. Crazy Lenny's my thing.
Selling fine machines to discerning consumers is your thing.
No more big discounts? No more truckload sales?
I was thinking exclusive membership and tea time rides. Maybe call it Leonard's Easy Riding Electronic Bikes.
Let's just say I'm suspicious. I'll get back to you.
Crazy Lenny's e-bikes, Odana Road.
I can't do it. I got to be me. I've got to be Crazy Lenny.
No exclusive e-bike membership clubs?
No way. E-bikes are for everyone. They're fun to ride, so you ride your e-bike more and longer, so e-bikes promote great health.
But these are high-end machines. You can't sell them to just anyone.
I always have. We carry the best e-bikes in the world, and we have e-bikes for everyone. Hundreds of e-bikes.
You don't have to be crazy to sell e-bikes, but it helps. Crazy Lenny's e-bikes, Odana.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished lower. The Dow down 259 points. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky is worried about the Delta variant of the coronavirus.
This week, the Delta variant is estimated to be the most prevalent variant in the United States, representing over 50% of sequenced samples across the country. up from 26% from the week ending June 19th. And in some parts of the country, the percentage is even higher.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says there is a way to protect yourself.
Please get vaccinated. It will protect you against the surging of the Delta variant.
New research from France adds to evidence that widely used vaccines still offer protection against the Delta variant. Fans are banned from the Tokyo Olympics because of a state of emergency aimed at containing rising coronavirus infections in the Japanese capital. The games are supposed to start in about 2 weeks. I'm Ed Donahue.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you hear My Computer Career ads and think, I don't know anything about computers? Well, you don't have to. Before starting, many graduates could turn a computer on and off. And that's it. Now they're IT pros. You could do it too. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new life in as little as 4 months. Grants covering up to 53% of the cost are available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's My Computer Career.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, Governor Tony Evers' administration announced the state's emergency rental assistance program has assisted close to 11,000 households around the state by providing more than $38 million in rental and utility assistance throughout the pandemic. The administration also announced that eligible Wisconsinites will now be able to use the program to secure internet services, highlighting the importance of a reliable internet connection and stressing the need for broadband expansion in Wisconsin. After proposing a bill to ban critical race theory in Wisconsin classrooms last month, Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature are now proposing a bill to require school districts to post their curriculum lists online. The proposal was drafted with support from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, which claims transparency is the driving reason for the legislation. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, a Throwback Thursday. And Dom, I got to say, great minds think alike. We both wanted to go in exactly the same direction, and that is a rarity here. Normally, you follow my lead. I occasionally follow yours. But today, we've arrived at the very same conclusion. Found this one at the Raw story, first published at Salon.com. A GOP rep, in this case, Adam Kinzinger, reveals suspicions about other Republicans knew about plans for the January 6th insurrection. Rep. Adam Kinzinger, again, Republican from Illinois, one of the few Republicans to vehemently deny former President Donald Trump's claim of widespread election fraud, said that he suspects some of his Republican colleagues could have predicted the Capitol riot and even supported it. Oh, damn. Here's a quote. I won't name names. Dominic, we prefer when people name names, but he says, I won't name names, but yes, I do have that suspicion. Kinzinger told the New York Times Magazine in an interview, I will say, if you just look at Twitter, the whole reason I brought my gun and kept my staff home and I told my wife to stay in the apartment was looking at Twitter. I saw the threats. Kinzinger specifically called out a January 6th tweet posted by Rep. Lauren Boebert, the Republican from Colorado, just prior to Trump's rally. Today is 1776. Now, critics have speculated that Boebert was either aware of the rioters' plans to breach the U.S. Capitol building and or calling for violent civilian protest. Again, here's a quote. I don't know what that meant other than this is the time for revolution, Kinzinger said. Maybe it was a dumb tweet that she didn't mean. Fine, I'll give her that credit for now. But if you have members of Congress who were involved in nurturing an insurrection, Heck yeah, we need to know, Dom.
Hell yes, Crudy. Continues. During the insurrection, Boebert also publicized the exact location of House Speaker Pelosi. Rep. Eric Swalwell later claimed that Boebert was told by the sergeant of arms in the chamber, not to make any social media posts. It was said repeatedly. She defied it because she is more closely aligned with the terrorists than the patriots. Late last month, Pelosi moved forward with her plan to assemble a select committee to investigate the Capitol riot after facing opposition from Senate GOP members. Minority Leader McConnell called the idea purely a political exercise. Kinzinger is just one of 10 House Republicans who voted back in January to impeach the former president for inciting the violent insurrection that unfolded on the Capitol earlier this year. But perhaps with the exception of Liz Cheney, who was ousted from her leadership position in May over her apparent lack of fealty to Trump, Kinzinger has been the most outspoken in his condemnation of the former president's election fraud conspiracies. In the Times Magazine interview, Kinzinger said he believes that the vast majority of Republicans agree with my position. They just aren't speaking out. If you're scared to tell the truth to people, I understand, but you need to find a different line of work, he argued, on something as existential as this, as threatening to the Constitution. My goodness. Earlier this year, Kinzinger launched his Country First PAC, a Never Trump political action committee that set out to reform the Republican Party, which he described as being in the middle of this slow sink, much like the Titanic. We have a band playing on the deck telling everybody it's fine, he said. And meanwhile, as I've said, Donald Trump's running around trying to find women's clothing to get on the first lifeboat.
Trump's and children first.
Though Kinzinger has expressed opposition to Trump, he has in the past politicked along staunchy conservative lines, voting to repeal the ACA and repeal the Dodd-Frank Act. He also voted against the Equality Act and supports punishing sanctuary cities, writes John Skolnick at salon.com. Now, I would just say this. If he has any sort of indication other than a gut feeling, I'm not clear that he's going to be one of the Republicans on the select committee. He might be called to testify to what the hell he's talking about. Name names.
Well, he
Adam.
did. He did. Lauren Boebert specifically, and he named the specific tweet that he found troubling. The 1776 is now or today or whatever.
One
right?
name. He named a name, but he references names plural.
Sure, but there may be plenty of Republicans that are quote unquote supportive of what happened at the Capitol that day. I mean, Ron Johnson called them the Patriots, right?
Well, they're all still
referring
to them. I mean, yes. Listen, I mean, this is gaslighting in to the nth degree. I mean, for Ron Johnson to come out and say that on his op-ed today that, these big tech companies are ruining your First Amendment rights. Well, that's not how it works, Ron. Republicans, that's not exactly how it works. The government has to do that. These tech companies, as large and monopolistic as they may be, and perhaps as Nichols mentions, something that we need to look at, they also have their own First Amendment rights. It's their platform. You don't get to walk in and dictate what they're going to do any more than you can mandate that we take your phone call. That's not violating your First Amendment rights. That's supporting my First Amendment rights.
A couple of interesting thoughts. Donald Trump was the president of the United States when he was kicked off two of those three platforms, when he was kicked off Twitter and Facebook, right? So how is the government, the Facebook government, apparently he's built them up. They're state actors.
Right.
But the government censored the government in the form of the president, who happens to be the guy that's filing this lawsuit, claiming they are also the government. So there's a little conflict there in the whole definition.
And of course, it's ridiculous because, of course, if Facebook or any of these other media companies were part of the government, perhaps they'd be part of the executive branch. Well, who's in charge of the executive branch? Of course, it is the president of the United States, and he could do address all sorts of things with executive orders, because if you believe that Facebook is part of the executive branch, well, then they would be under the purview of the president.
Okay. I like how you're thinking. I disagree with a little of your logic there, a lot of Trump's logic there. But here's the other point. Why did Trump specifically get deplatformed? Permabanned, if you will.
Inciting and riot and insurrection.
On January
violence.
6th, right?
Yeah.
So if he files this lawsuit and they have to, say, well, we have cause, wouldn't Donald Trump be depositioned about his
They would have
involvement
discovery.
in
Yes,
the
they would have
January 6th
discovery.
insurrection?
Good luck with discovery, I think Charlie Pierce wrote.
To successfully proceed with this lawsuit, against the interwebs and Facebook and Google and whatever, Donald Trump's going to have to testify to what he did to get deplatformed by those very same said state actors while he was the president. And of course, they're actually private corporations. And even Trump signed away his rights to complain when he joined the Facebook and the Twitterverse. So none of it holds up much to scrutiny, but too bad Rudy Giuliani couldn't have filed it for him. But I see Rudy lost his law license in the district.
In D.C., no longer able to practice law. Poor Rudy. Don't you just feel so terrible for him? A little bit on this topic.
What has happened to us? What has happened to us?
Yeah, I don't know. What has happened? It's too much winning, Dom.
NBC reported yesterday Rudy McCarthy expected to appoint Republicans to the January 6th Select Committee. Said he's spoken to multiple Republican members of his conference about serving on the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attacks on the Capitol. Multiple congressional sources told NBC News. The discussions signal that he doesn't plan to boycott the committee, as was initially unclear. He is ultimately expected to make appointments to the 5 unfilled committee seats, the sources said. Speaker Pelosi has the final say over which lawmakers McCarthy can appoint to the panel. Some GOP members have publicly volunteered to serve on the committee. Meanwhile, others who have spoken to McCarthy view serving on the committee, whose work could drag well into the 2022 election cycle, less enthusiastically. Rep. Rodney Davis, a Republican from Illinois, the top Republican on the House Administration Committee, is one of the few in his party who have stepped forward to publicly say they'd sit on the committee. Quote, I would always serve if I was asked, but Leader McCarthy is going to have to make the determination who the best Republicans may or may not be. Davis, who said he has not spoken to McCarthy about it, said in an interview. But Davis, who was just one of 35 House Republicans who voted for the creation of the January 6th Commission, said the current format of the committee is purely partisan. The end result is everything we were worried about, which is Speaker Pelosi creating a partisan circus, Davis said. The Democrats don't care what Republicans say. They know this is going to be a one-sided partisan effort, and that's not going to be good for the American people. I would just push back on Mr. Davis here just a little bit. I mean, they had the opportunity, Republicans, to do this in a purely, fully bipartisan manner. And I said it then, and I'll say it again. You should have taken the offer. I mean, Nancy's first offer was her best offer, and now this is what it is. And Davis, unless you're saying you're going to be a partisan on there as well, is Liz Cheney also going to be the partisan? How about Adam Kinzinger? What about the folks who maybe take some umbrage with the actions of those who are in this insurrection, perhaps with some of their own, Crudy, some of their own fellow Congress people who may have had inside information or forethought on this happening?
I knew you had a Peter Pan complex, but I never thought you were born yesterday, man. I never thought you naive. You know what we're going to see? Kevin McCarthy is going to put the worst of the worst on this select committee.
No, he won't, because Pelosi gets final say over that.
Okay, so Pelosi gets to pick the Republican members also. So I'm not clear, but I would think he's got a Jim Jordan, a Matt Gaetz, a Louis Gohmert, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, and maybe a Bobber Tupper up his sleeve. So what if he puts out his dream team, air quotes? Nancy's going to reject the entirety of his assignments, because that, of course, smacks of partisanship on both ends. But of course, they'll point to Nancy, and here we go. It's kabuki theater. It's a partisan charade.
Well, they're going to say that anyway. I mean, some of these things, they talk about being naive, Kurt. You're going to think that if Nancy accepts these without any sort of fight, that all of a sudden the Republicans say, see, now it's bipartisan. No, who's being naive, Crudy? The Republicans are going to do that no matter what. But at the end of the day, while certainly we're in a political environment, I mean, this is a real problem. I mean, are you kidding me?
That you can't staff a select committee with 5 Republicans.
This was not
over their dead bodies.
This was not tourism gone wild, man. And let's just think of what the BS we've been hearing from these Republicans for the last 6 months. I mean, this has to be addressed. And if they don't want to be a part of it, they turn their back on a purely bipartisan effort to do so. So now we're stuck with what we're going to get. And I'm not clear that I think in that regard, the fact that it was not bipartisan to begin with, yeah, that's bad for the country, but it's really bad for Republicans. What do you think? Just because Ron Johnson stands up and says and reads some Federalist Society members' statements that, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but I'm going back, some conservative who said, looks like they were joyous and festive. Well, yeah, that was until they started busting the windows and breaking things down and crapping on the floors and beating cops. The back the baz, the thin blue line. I mean, the Republicans are absolute hypocrites on this. And one of the reasons I believe they're so adamant to continue to put up this veil of partisanship, because they know they may be criminally liable for their own actions. They may be. We haven't had discovery yet. It's been going on 6 months. I still don't know if any of those Republicans were given tours to the insurrectionist bastards on the days before the election. How is that not a known fact today?
You don't need to know that. There are known knowns and known unknowns, and that's something you don't need to know. I'll let you know if you need to know, but
I need to know.
You want to know.
We need to know. I mean, if you are an elected official, you're part of this government, you are taking part in an insurrection. That's something I think people need to know. I would want to know it if it was a Democrat, if it was a Libertarian, or if it's a Republican. I want to know who the hell's attacking our country. And I want to know that there's going to be repercussions for that effort, not just the ones that are arrested now, and the 300, the 500 and some that have been charged, and the 300 that they're still looking for. I want to know if these elected Republicans were tied up in all of these things. If there was, were there conversations with the White House? That seems to be potentially the case. I'd like to know those facts. I don't want to assume, but right now I'm assuming the worst.
You don't have to assume anything. Look at the legal filings of the Congressman Brooks from Alabama. Well, he spoke, and according to his newly filed court testimony, Dom, he did so at the bequest of the White House. Hell, they helped him write his speech. Come back with us. Of course the White House was involved. More Devil's Advocates.
Yeah. What has happened to us? What has happened to us?
Addition! 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates, inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
You're listening to the radio show your mother warned you about. Tom and Kreutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Your calls are always welcome here on the show at 844-967-2789. Show us your true colors.
Still beats Nickelback, right? Dominic, sort of, in a similar vein, U.S. Rep. Ken Buck, he is a Republican congressman from Colorado, Lauren Bobbert's home state. And he says Google flipped 15 million votes away from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. Buck last year on tape as the chair of the Colorado GOP allegedly tried pressuring an El Paso County GOP official to falsify election results in the state Senate District 10 race. So this is a sitting congressman doing this last year. This is a quote, Google, by the way, changed its algorithm in May of 2020 to disadvantage Donald Trump and to advantage Joe Biden, Buck said in secret recordings made by Lauren Windsor, who was posing as a Trump supporter. She wore a red hat, changed its algorithms. And when you ask them about this, I know people who own newspapers and ask them about it, they say, oh, well, it's just a technical thing. We don't know what the result was. We just don't know what did that. A technical person did this. Nonsense. They chose the winner. They can move, the estimates are they can move 15 million votes because every time you ask for an article on Donald Trump or every time you Google Donald Trump, and people here obviously Google in a more sophisticated way, but
the Trump
people
supporters
out there, they're hearing about Donald Trump and they're wondering, Donald Trump, Hunter Biden, ? I heard that what you said about Google, that they changed the algorithm and penalized President Trump. Can you talk more about that? Like they flipped 15 million votes to Biden, Windsor asked Buck. What I've heard from some of the academics on the issue is that by changing the algorithm, you can flip 15 million votes. You can influence 15 million people to move one direction or another in that situation. Going on in this article, Dom, and claiming that absolutely happened, Buck went on to say, so you talk to people, in a conservative publications, and they'll tell you is that after that algorithm went into effect, their readership went down. So if you're looking for something on the Washington Examiner or the Washington Times, forget which fine rag Scott Walker writes columns for,
I think it's the Times.
Or the conservative newspapers in this area, you would have to go further down. You'd have to go to page 2 or 3 to find the story you were looking for. And
if you're doing sophisticated Google searching, I mean, who's got time to go to page 2 or 3?
That's what Google did, was by changing their algorithm, and that absolutely happened. Hence the Trump lawsuit, apparently, Dom. They changed their algorithm to disadvantage Trump and influence 15 million voters to pull the trigger for Joe Biden because they couldn't find the Washington Times until the second page of Google. I mean, it all makes perfect sense.
I mean, now that you put it like that, yeah. I mean, okay. And his evidence of this is that he's talked to some conservative newspaper types, and that's what they've said.
Well, a friend of a friend.
Well, all right,
a little bit more in this article, Dom. Here, see if I can clarify for you.
Please.
A similar claim was disputed and debunked last year, including in a libertarian publication. Another similar claim made by Donald Trump was debunked by CNN. Buck, who last year threatened President Joe Biden to come and take his AR-15, also went on to reveal the GOP's intention to focus on attacking transgender children and critical race theory that he expects will help the GOP take back the House next year and use the House to win the presidency in 2024. The people are so obsessed with boys playing girl sports and the critical race theory and all the other things that are going on that we will win the majority, and we will hold hearings on this very issue in 2023. And that happens before the 2024 election. Well, he understands the calendar, at least, Dom. So anyways, that apparently is what he said. Buck's remarks attacking Google and suggesting the election is tainted led some to call him, and this is a quote, unhinged. Well, one noted Harvard law professor disputes the possibility. That'd be Lawrence Tribe. Unhinged suggests Ken Buck was ever hinged. The evidence suggests not. he was responding to a tweet from Dvorkian. The guy often tweets, the Scott Dvorkian at Funder. We've seen him. I think we follow him.
And this is Joe Buck. Now he's a senator, or is he a congressman?
He's
a congressman
from the great state of Colorado, Lauren Bobbert's home state. Yeah, they've raised good Congress people from there.
What is it, when he's talking to a crowd of Trumpsters and says to them, well, you're much more sophisticated in your Googling. What does he mean by
Well, they
that?
use Bing.
I mean,
they ask Jeeves.
He couldn't
Yahoo?
name more than one browser if he had to.
I'm not clear I could. I
Safari?
Google everything. It's always worth a Google. 844-967-2789. We hope it's worth a phone call. Joining the Devil's Advocates radio show, like our pal, Wisco Paul. Welcome back, Paul. What do you got for us?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, good afternoon, Devils. Yes, Cheeto Jesus is involved in this up to his eyeballs, along with some congressmen and maybe a senator from the state of Wisconsin. So they got to get to the bottom of this. And it's Trump didn't want to lose power. I mean, look what he's done besides that. He called the attorney general down in Georgia on the phone. It's all on record. This is a crazy time. So I hope they nail the Cheeto Jesus, and maybe Rojo can go down as well, along with some congressmen. It's a sad deal.
Paul, do you think the big tech lawsuit from Trump is really just his way of trying to countersue? The government indicted his CFO. Do you think he's just trying to countersue the government in some twisted way?
I think he's trying to get money from his donors and say, hey, it all fits the narrative. I lost the election. It's just an amazing thing. I can't even believe this is even going on. It's just amazing. So that's my thoughts of the day. Thanks for taking my call, boys.
Keep dodging the Scott holes out there, Wisco. Quick note, Dom. This one I found on Twitter, where Donald Trump lacks for a platform position.
Poor guy.
A very interesting development in Trump world. As of today, Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer of the Trump organization, who has been charged with multiple counts of tax fraud in New York, is no longer a director of Trump's inaugural company in Scotland, the Trump International Golf Club, Scotland Limited. Apparently made a filing today, termination of the appointment of Alan Weisselberg as director, effective today.
Uh-oh.
The coffee boy, he failed him. Failed to give him enough cover.
This is only in Scotland, though?
This filing was just registered on Twitter about Scotland. Devil's Advocates coming back, the happier happy hour, the Thursday edition.
Yeah, I will just wrap by saying I appreciate that very brave admission of your fandom for Nickelback. That's very brave, and I do recognize that.
Are you ready for a political party in the heart of Red, Wisconsin? Join the Devil's Advocates live on the deck at Johnny's Lounge, 519 Madison Street, Beaver Dam, Thursday, July 15th. Watch the Devil's Advocates live broadcast 2 to 5 p.m. Enjoy the lakeside views from Johnny's outdoor deck. Support a neighbor's local small business, and then unplug for the party and enjoy the summer of love.
Oh, God.
Thursday, July 15th, Devil's Advocates, Johnny's Lounge, Beaver Dam.
Oh, crap.
Hey there, I got a question for you guys. You feeling stressed or anxious, trying to figure out this new world? Or maybe just feeling sore after all that summer yard work? You should come on down to Knuckleheads. Cruise right up the stairs at 550 State Street. We got the best CBD and wellness products Madison has to offer. Come talk to a friendly neighborhood knucklehead today and see if CBD works for you. You can call the shop at 608-284-0151 or check out the website, knuckleheadcbd.com, with any questions. I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
Key News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden says America's longest war will end next month. The AP Sagar Magani reports he is resisting calls from some to keep U.S. troops in Afghanistan during a Taliban resurgence.
The president says the U.S. has achieved both goals it set when invading Afghanistan 20 years ago: take down Osama bin Laden and keep the nation from again becoming a terror haven.
We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build.
And Afghan leaders must now chart their own path. The president's been visibly annoyed by suggestions he's leaving too soon as the Taliban makes steady advances. But he says the past 20 years have shown the war is unwinnable.
How many thousands more Americans' daughters and sons were you willing to risk?
Under growing pressure from lawmakers, he's vowing to evacuate thousands of Afghans who help the U.S. military as drivers and interpreters. Sagar Magani at the White House.
Michael Avenatti is going to prison for 2.5 years. He's the attorney who represented Stormy Daniels when she sued then-President Donald Trump. Avenatti was convicted of trying to extort up to $25 million from Nike. Dania Perry is Avenatti's attorney.
He is deeply humbled as a result of this experience, and he's excited to start the next part of his life.
CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says coronavirus case numbers are rising in a number of states.
We know that the Delta variant has increased transmissibility, and it is currently surging in pockets of the country with low vaccination rates.
New research from France shows coronavirus vaccines work against the Delta variant. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is asking people and businesses to voluntarily cut how much water they use by 15%. Stocks finished lower, the Dow down 259 points. This is AP News.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you hear My Computer Career ads and think, I don't know anything about computers? Well, you don't have to. Before starting, many graduates could turn a computer on and off. And that's it. Now they're IT pros. You could do it too. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new life in as little as 4 months. Grants covering up to 53% of the cost are available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's My Computer Career.
I've already guaranteed this will be my last term. I'm doing this because I want to solve these problems.
Was it problem solving when you blocked COVID relief or when you downplayed the insurrection?
I want to do it because I'm so concerned about the direction of this country. I've got something to offer.
Like becoming a hydroxychloroquine salesman?
I'll go home, smile on my face, realizing I'd left it all on the field.
You must be exhausted.
6 years from now, I'll for sure be going home.
We'll hold you to your word, Senator. Go home.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org. Milwaukee is a great city with a great history and great architecture. You can take in Milwaukee's history and architecture while you partake in the delicious Wisconsin craft beer at Regano's Roman Coin on historic Brady Street. The Roman Coin was originally a Pabst Tight House built by Frederick Pabst in 1890 to sell Pabst beer. It was even designed by the same architect who designed the Pabst Theater. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's historic, pet-friendly, cash-only, ordering classic corner tavern. Hey, Darcy, I just saw the perfect house and I want you to help me write an offer on it.
I'd be happy to, Dom. Were you at the open house?
No, I just called the sign and had the agent show it to me. I don't want to bug you.
Oh, Dom, how many times have you heard me say don't call the sign?
But
you called the agent working for the seller, and once you see the property with that agent, I'm no longer free to write an offer on it.
So
you need to hire us from the beginning, help you find the right home, negotiate on your behalf, and protect your interests all the way through the process. And it shouldn't cost you a dime.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Find them at solidarityrealty.com.
Wisconsin is getting back to doing what it does best, enjoying themselves with friends and neighbors. If you're looking for a night out or kick-ass food, Johnny's Lounge in Beaver Dam is your place. Located at 519 Madison Street, right on the lake, Johnny's Lounge is a big patio with amazing views and a fun staff. Drink specials every night. Bar dice, flip cup, incredible burgers, kitchen open late, everything a Wisconsinite could want. Johnny's Lounge at Beaver Dam. It may not be possible to have too much fun, but we sure try.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. According to the latest data provided by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, the state is now experiencing a 7-day rolling average of 0 deaths a day due to COVID-19. That average is down from a rolling average of 4 deaths a day 1 month ago. The Wisconsin Elections Commission has mailed postcards to almost 100,000 voters the commission has identified as potentially moving since the fall of 2019. The postcards provide information for voters to ensure their registration is up to date. Voters have 30 days to respond to the postcards, but beyond that time, local clerks can remove the voters suspected of moving from the voting rolls. Forecasts of cloudy skies throughout the day with light and variable winds at a high of 69 degrees. Partly cloudy skies expected this evening with an overnight low of 54 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
And welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, sliding into the 4 o'clock happy hour. Thank you for sticking around with us. Phone lines are going to be open for you at 844-967-2789. Crudy had to step out, so Fancy Brian and I will be bringing you all home, you lucky, lucky audience. Again, 844-96-PARTY. As mentioned earlier in the show, I went out and did some journalistic actions today.
I just want to pat you on the back for this.
Thank you. All right, hey, let's go ahead. Tell me more.
Honestly, getting up and showing that, enthusiasm and just gumption. That's the word. That's the word.
Thank you, Brian.
Amazing.
I appreciate. Yes, I did. I took a shower and I put on a collar shirt.
Showered? I didn't know this was a shower day for you too. You must be exhausted.
Pulled my hair back, put on my glasses because I'm an old man now, and strolled on up 1.5 miles. Actually jumped in the car, go to Cumberland in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, middle school, where the governor was doing a presser. Saw Molly Beck there from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. She has a little right up here. I'll start there. Then we have some sound of this occasion. We'll go there as well. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers Thursday signed into law a new state budget written by Republican lawmakers that includes billions in income tax cuts, and announced he would be providing school districts with an additional $100 million in federal funding to make up for what he characterized as a plan that falls short for schools. The Democratic governor signed the $87.3 billion 2-year state spending plan in an elementary school library in a Milwaukee suburb, Whitefish Bay, igniting his reelection campaign that will rely on areas such as Whitefish Bay, where a shifting electorate could prove crucial in Wisconsin's tight statewide races. According to the press release I saw, my understanding also today on the tour, Eau Claire and Green Bay, some big markets and certainly some important constituents for the governor as we kick off his, I guess now, next election cycle. The governor tweaked the plan using his veto authority in 50 largely minor areas, but left intact the centerpiece of the Republican plan, a more than $2 billion tax cut package that would reduce the state's third tax bracket for about half of Wisconsin residents to 5.3%. This morning, I'm signing one of the largest tax cuts in Wisconsin state history, Evers said at a news conference held in Cumberland. The bipartisan budget. Well, the Republicans are mad when he says that. The bipartisan budget, along with prior reductions, not only delivers on my promise to cut taxes for middle-class families by 10%, I'm cutting middle-class income taxes by 15%, overshooting the goal by 50%. Well done, Governor. As Molly Beck writes, though, Republicans immediately blasted Evers for taking credit. Governor Tony Evers deserves no credit for signing our budget, Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu said in a statement. This was not a bipartisan process of colleagues sharing ideas. He got boxed into a corner, and rather than fight for his unpopular budget and risk a political knockout, he and his team threw in the towel and signed our responsible budget. He's not a fighter. He's not a leader. He did not sign our conservative budget out of bipartisan motives. He is merely sensible enough to recognize a better budget when he sees one.
So isn't he admitting that he boxed him into a corner and put him in a position where he had really no choice? And on top of that, he was the one who made it so it wasn't bipartisan in the first place.
Right.
So he's saying that because you're signing on to it, you're making it bipartisan. It's not. It's all Republicans. It's all. So you're basically saying that you're admitting that you're a partisan hack, and that all you wanted to do was box the governor into a corner to get a political win. Rather than championing, hey, thank God we got our tax cuts that we really, really wanted. Hey, we got more for education. And maybe he's going and saying, hey, look, we did something good for once. They're saying, no, Tony Evers, he's dying. He can't take credit for it, which is exactly what Scott Walker would do if the thing was reversed.
Oh, and of course, as Evers himself points out, he could have vetoed any parts of it. So anything he really kept in was in an agreement with the status quo, at least as they presented it to him, the Republican budget. We have some sound from today's activities, and since I did put on a collared shirt, we might as well get to some of that.
You showered too. Don't forget the shower.
Very, very important. Let's start with cut number 1, please, Brian.
Today, we anticipate having a $2.39 billion general fund surplus as we start the new fiscal year, which will be the largest opening balance in state's history. Because we made those critical decisions to get our state in the best position to recover, we were able to propose bold solutions to address the urgent crisis like we face.
So the sound quality not great. Front row at the at the middle school, using the sound from the Facebook live feed that we put up on the Devil's Advocates Radio Facebook page, and they had speakers and a mic. And I don't know if Tony's just talking around it or not talking loud enough, or it wasn't turned on. But bear with us. We have a little more of Tony Evers today. Let's hear more about delivering the bounce back. Cut 2.
There's much to be said about areas where this budget fails to deliver on the support Wisconsinites need after facing a severe economic crisis like we have this last year.
Let's keep on with Governor Evers today signing it, because he apparently believes in people over politics. You hear that, LeMahieu? Cut number 3.
In many ways, this budget presents a false choice between the priorities the people of the state care about and deserve. But after 8 long years of politicians making decisions for all the wrong reasons, I ran to be governor of the state and promised I would always put people before politics.
Regarding the tax cuts, yeah, it's a bipartisan bill, and he's going to take some credit for it. And that just bothers Republicans. Let's hear cut number 4.
The bipartisan budget, along with prior reductions, not only delivers on my promise to cut taxes for middle-class families by 10%, and cutting middle-class income taxes by 15%. This budget alone provides $2 billion in individual income tax relief over the biennium and approximately $1 billion annually going forward. And I'm newly providing tax relief to more than 1.6 million Wisconsin taxpayers at a time when our economy and working families of 2.4 million filers will be receiving tax relief in Wisconsin.
2.4 million filers are going to get some tax relief from this budget. So not only is it bipartisan tax cuts that Governor Evers signed, hell, according to the governor, Republicans joined him in funding the schools. Let's hear cut 5.
So this budget began and will end where it always does for me, with education. I'm proud that after providing several opportunities to meet this obligation during my time as governor, Republicans in the legislature have decided to join me in restoring our state's commitment to 2/3 funding for our schools, and we will finally be hitting that mark in the next biennium for the first time in 2 decades.
First time in 20 years, Republicans jumping on the Evers education bandwagon. The bounce back. Well done, Republicans. Finally educating those kids. Let's hear a few more from the governor. Cut number 6.
I've said before, doing what's best for our kids is why vetoing this budget is frankly out of question for me. At the end of the day, vetoing this budget in its entirety would have meant not only jeopardizing those investments that I just mentioned, but also likely causing our kids in schools to lose $2.3 billion in federal funds when they need it the most.
Right. Of course, and that's part of the hook on this whole deal. A little bit more on that topic. You remember how long it took the GOP to do anything on COVID relief? Evers very concerned about them not taking action in time to save and keep the $2+ billion. Let's do the next cut, number 7, please.
Moreover, leaving $2.3 billion up to chance that Republicans who took nearly 300 days to pass a COVID-19 response bill during a global pandemic, go figure, to come in and pass a meaningful budget in a timely fashion that was a risk that I frankly wasn't willing to take.
Department of Education Underly, she was there as well, talking about the beginning. Cut number 8, please.
All of this is just the beginning. When you look at early childhood education, we have to invest in kids on the front end if we want to be successful and provide those opportunities on the back end. When we look at teachers leaving the profession in droves, where will that leave us if we don't have the best and brightest in front of our kids every day?
Evers, for a couple more here, and let's remind everybody, we're in Whitefish Bay Middle School, at Cumberland Middle School, in the library. In attendance are many cute little kids of various ages, perhaps the youngest looking about, call it 4 or 5 or so. And Tony Evers talks about fixing those damn roads. Oh, you're swearing in front of the kids, Tony? Come on, man. Let's hear number 9.
We are able to make some progress in several key areas, from broadband expansion to continuing our work to fix the damn roads to supporting our service members.
I mean, literally, there's like little dudes and dudettes right behind the governor as he's saying.
And they're all chuckling too. That's the best
You
part.
can
They're
kind
all
of hear it in
laughing
the
too.
background. That's all right, man. We're all adults. We can handle the language. One final cut from the governor from my efforts today. Governor Evers, cut number 10.
The biggest problems with the budget are not the things that need to be removed by a stroke of a pen, but rather the work the legislature has left undone in working towards reforming the justice system, to protecting of the right of every person to vote, to invest in equity, among others.
Justice reform, not in this budget. Securing the right for Wisconsinites to vote, not in this budget. A lot of things not in this budget. Some money still set aside by the governor in this effort. There still could be some legislation to address some issues, but I wouldn't count on it. I don't think the Republicans have any appetite for that. Come back with us. Crudy is out. Brian and I are taking you home until the 5 o'clock hour. Join us on the phones at 844-967-2789. It's a happy hour. We will be right back.
We got to do something. Absolutely. You know what we got to do? Toga party.
We really don't know if I have the authority to do that.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
The Devils Advocates are taking the political party to the Atomic in Fitchburg as the Summer of Love continues. Join the Devils Advocates live broadcast Tuesday, July 20th, 2 to 5 p.m. from the Atomic in Fitchburg, one of Hawk's finer neighborhood bars. Join our Devil Radio family. Enjoy the political party to follow, see old friends, and make new ones. Come let your free flag fly at the Atomic Koi. Tuesday, July 20th, broadcast at 2. Thanks to Chad's Design Build for sponsoring the Summer of Love.
Chad's Design Build is proud to sponsor the Summer of Love on Devil Radio. We are committed to our community to demand better for each and every person. Doing the right thing isn't necessarily easy or inexpensive, but when we take the time to listen and learn, we can build a better community. Thoughtful remodeling is a lot like building an effective, progressive coalition. It takes patience, intelligence, and love. Experience helps too. Thank you, Joe Biden, and thank you, Devil Radio. On behalf of Chad's Design Build, here's to the Summer of Love.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join MoveOn's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Get ready to get local. Saturdays at 11 a.m., Dane by Local and 92.7 FM Devil Radio bring you Let's Get Local, a new program featuring area businesses and nonprofits that make our community unique and special. So tune in Saturdays and go local, Madison.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Taking on Radio Whitey Talk Radio on both sides of the dial from Cross Plains to Cottage Grove. Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open 844-967-2789. Don't forget, 1 week from today, Devil's Advocates going back out on the road, heading back up to Johnny's in Beaver Dam. We were there once before. We want all of our friends to come out and join us doing a live broadcast Thursday, July 15th. Hopefully out on the deck at Johnny's overlooking the beautiful lake. It will be a good time. Last time it was raining a little bit, but lots of folks still came out. We had a blast. We hope you show up once again.
I really like Johnny a lot. I had a lot of fun with him in studio. He's got a little devil in his eyes, and
He does.
he likes to start some stuff, as it were.
He likes to stir it up a little bit. You know, it makes for some interesting conversations at the bar. So make sure you join us if you're able to do so. I'll see if I can put together a little social media invite on the Facebook to make sure everyone knows where it's at and what time it is. But I'm telling you right now, it is next week, Thursday, July 15th, Johnny's Lounge up in Beaver Dam, Devil's Advocates, and you. Make sure you join us. So before we get to the phones, I want to give you an opportunity, Brian. You said you had a little West GOP story to tell.
Well, all this budget discussion and the going back and forth, really, it's at the end of the day, they're going to sign a budget. There's going to be a budget. If not, if he vetoes it, it defaults to the old budget, and that's what moves on. So they're going to be funding. It's not going to fall apart. It's not like the schools are going to just crumble immediately if this doesn't work. Really, it's just they're trying to make the governor look bad, and the governor's trying to make them look bad. And really, at the end of the day, I don't see them having any new ideas other than make the other guy look bad. And this brings me to a personal story. I called my state rep at the beginning of the pandemic, right? Because I got a kid. She's in elementary school. I'm concerned about the pandemic and her going to school. They had the resources to give my kid and every other kid a Chromebook available that was already programmed with the programs you need, that type of thing. Awesome stuff. We have resources in Oak Creek. All right. So I call my state rep and I'm like, so we got to figure out how to get these kids back in school, because both of us work, and
right.
I mean, what am I going to do? I can't. Granny's not going to help her with the online homework. Let's just say that. So I'm like, what can we do? What can we do? We got to figure out some ideas. And she kept on telling. She called me back. So she's there. She's available, and she will talk to people. So I appreciate that. And I've told this story before, but it's very important to get this through because this happens consistently. And we had like a half an hour conversation. She was late for another appointment, talking to me for a while. And the conversation went like this. all right, we need to do something to get maybe testing in schools, make sure the teachers are tested. There's a free clinic down the street. Do you want me to try and organize all the parents to go and take their kids to get tested on a regular basis? Do you want to figure out how to work with the PTO? Like, how can we do this? How can we make this as best as possible? And every single time she kept on telling me how Governor Evers wouldn't work with them. And she kept on going, like, hedging that, oh, the Governor Evers wouldn't talk to us. I'm like, okay. Great. I got it. Let's say Governor Evers is a jerk and he's never going to talk to you, but let's pretend he does. What would you say we should do? She goes, well, the Governor Evers wouldn't talk to us. I'm like, no. In this scenario,
right.
What would you want to do? If you had a magic wand and Rep. Jesse Rodriguez, you could do whatever you want. What would you do to go and figure out how to get these kids back in schools? How can we make sure that we can test and get safe and all that type of stuff? And she said, I would leave it up to the local municipalities. I said, so after all of this, complaining that Governor Evers will not work with you or do anything with you, your idea is to do nothing. That's it. Could you even explain or articulate any sort of better idea whatsoever? She couldn't. And that's what happens every time I confront George on the text line and he conservative. I'm like, okay, great. We're all jerks. What's your idea? Give me your idea. On crime, George's idea was lock up the criminals.
Hey,
real good idea. How are you going to do that? What's the reality of it? You have to figure out what to do. And then when it comes down to it, you give them a scenario. What's your idea? They don't have one. And that's what this budget reminded me of.
And it is frustrating when the politics takes over to such a degree that there is very minimal governance going on, right? But the budget is something that has to be done. And as you mentioned, Brian, that if Evers did not sign a budget, if we didn't come to some sort of terms between the Republicans and the Democrats and do something, well, it defaults to last year. And that was not an option for Evers. Briefly, from Molly Beck once again, Evers said a full budget veto was not an option because, in part, it would have jeopardized the federal aid to schools. He also announced that he would direct $100 million in federal funding to schools because the budget included a tenth of the school funding he proposed. The new funding does not have rules for how the money may be spent, he said. The budget isn't good enough for our kids, and Republicans could and should have done more. And while they may be fine forcing Wisconsinites across the state to go to referendum just to support their public schools, I am not. Governor Evers, the education governor, finding $100 million to stick into schools. The Republicans, of course, did their job. At the end of the day, there's a budget. We're going to move Wisconsin forward. And now marks the beginning of the next election cycle. The budget is out. Tony's going to get back on the road. I'm sure he's already Eau Claire and Green Bay today after leaving Whitefish Bay, touting the budget, got some people in tow. And here we go. So as much governance as we have been lacking perhaps in the last 6 months, 6 years, 6 decades, it's not going to get any better because everyone's going to start now running for office. Join us on the phone. Is going to go to them next. 844-967-2789. Hits the happy hour. Always love to hear from our audience. 844-96-PARTY. We'll be right back.
I am in favor of legalizing it. I've always said that.
Do it now.
Come on, do it now!
In time, you will know the true power of Devil Radio 92.7. It is your destiny.
Devil Radio is kicking off the summer of love, and you're going to want to get your share.
Oh, God.
With live events, soirees, and sponsor receptions.
Devil's Triangle.
Beginning in May. Why wait? Come get your love from our adoring audience now.
Okay.
Lock in your summer loving advertising package, and your spring fling is guilt-free.
And yada, yada, yada.
New Devil Radio lovers ads play in May for free with no charge for production. Come get your love only on Devil Radio.
In-person culinary dinner theater is back at Delectable. This is a signature event where the chef is the star, the wine experts and mixologists the co-stars. You are the audience, and your palate the judge. Chef Jake Lawler will treat you to an extraordinary multi-course feast paired perfectly with wine and spirits. Enjoy local, organic, and sustainable ingredients. It's Culinary Dinner Theater at Delectable, located within Vom Foss on University Avenue. Reserve your seat now at delectablemadison.com.
Biden and Afghanistan. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden says the last U.S. troops will leave Afghanistan August 31st. He was asked by a reporter if that could lead to the Taliban retaking Kabul, the capital.
You have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
An Afghan official says the Taliban have taken a third border crossing heading into Iran. Iranian media report Afghan troops fled across that border. Michael Avenatti, the lawyer who once represented Stormy Daniels in lawsuits against then-President Donald Trump, is sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for trying to extort up to $25 million from Nike by threatening the company with bad publicity. Avenatti, through tears, told the court, I and I alone have destroyed my career, my relationships, and my life. I'm Tim McGuire.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Do you hear My Computer Career ads and think, I don't know anything about computers? Well, you don't have to. Before starting, many graduates could turn a computer on and off. And that's it. Now they're IT pros. You could do it too. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new life in as little as 4 months. Grants covering up to 53% of the cost are available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's My Computer Career.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway expressed her disappointment in legislative Republicans singling out Madison and Milwaukee by cutting the state funding for transit services in the state's two largest cities in half. Mayor Rhodes Conway hopes Governor Tony Evers will address that provision with a line-item veto in the state budget or use American Rescue Plan funds if a partial veto is not possible. The Climate Defense Project filed a complaint against the UW Foundation with the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions, alleging the foundation's investments in fossil fuel companies is against the foundation's mission statement and illegal under Wisconsin law. The Madison Night Market will return to downtown this year and will now run along State Street for the first time. With approval from the city yesterday, the market will return on August 19th and be held a total of 5 times before the end of the year. You're listening to Devil Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Let the good times roll. When our audience jumps in, that's when the good times really start. Going to go to the phones right now, 844-967-2789. We'll start with our pal, Profane Ronnie. Hey, Ronnie, welcome back. What do you got for us today?
Hi there. Look at you being all journalistic, just like Mr. Fruity. Very, very proud of you.
Hey, thank you, Ronnie. Never had one lesson.
So I have a question about that press conference. I heard that you took a shower and you put your hair up and you had your collared shirt on. I heard about the collared shirt 3 times. I and the women of Drinking Liberally Waukesha are burning to know, did you have pants on?
Yes. It's actually kind of cold today. I was considering something else, but I did have pants on. Ronnie, thank you for asking. Fair question, since I very rarely mention my pants.
Exactly. A girl can dream. A girl can dream.
I tell you what, you come out next Thursday to Beaver Dam, Ronnie. We'll see what happens. No promises. We'll just see what happens.
All right, man. See ya.
All right, Ronnie, thanks for the call on 844-967-2789. Ronnie was there last time. We had a good time. She knows. Andy from Beaver Dam, you are up. Hope to see you next Thursday, man. Welcome back. What do you got?
Well, we'll see, Dom, how many progressives we've got up in Dodge County. I think we're going to need some help from Madison to all my friends are conservatives, but we'll be up there. We'll be there, and hopefully you'll have your hair tied up again in a collared shirt, you know.
And pants, maybe.
And pants, yeah. Well, you know, by next week you could be in the mid-80s, so then maybe you'll have to wear your shorts instead.
Well, Andy, I got to tell you something, man. I was down in Key West for a wedding a few years ago, and the bride bought me some, you know, bright neon yellow little Key West, like, short bathing suit thing. So, you know, I've been known to pull those out once in a while, Andy. And if we get feisty enough and it's hot enough, I'm gonna have to pull those out and jump on the water, man.
Brazilian hot pants?
Yes.
Well, was it in the form of a Speedo like that?
Yeah, something like that, but think smaller. But yes. I could send you a picture, Andy, if you like.
No, thanks. That's all right.
All right. Hey, Andy, let me tell you. Let me ask you something, man. I would encourage all of your conservative Republican type friends up in Beaver, man. Come on, bring them on down, man. Tell them to come on down. We'll talk some trash. We'll have some drinks. We'll have a good time. I mean, do you find that they are willing to engage, Andy?
Well, sometimes I just refrain from bringing it up because they can get a little hostile, but I don't know. I'll see what I can drum up. It might be interesting for one guy in particular to just come on up and hear what the other side lives like, you know. Would be good.
That's all I'm saying, Andy. You know, we've always taken on all comers. We've never shied away from that. And, you know, sometimes it's double teaming me and Crudy or Crudy and I to fight and have these conversations. You got a better memory than I do. But Andy, you know, that's kind of the thing. It's one of the reasons we go out and do these things. It's not just for the party and the fun. It's also, if we can, you know, let people know that there is, you know, there's other ideas and thoughts and whatnot out there. And if you know, in places, I know Beaver Dam maybe is a little less red than the surrounding rest of the county, Andy.
Right.
But you know, these are okay conversations to have. And I think, you know, we are the perfect ones, the devil's advocates to help at least start those conversations. And if things get chippy, they get chippy, man. That's fine. No one's going to hurt anybody. This is all just about trying to, you know, articulate our positions and maybe, you know, and understand each other and understand, perhaps agree on what, you know, reality is and start from there. You know, I'm not going to have a conversation with any Republican anymore, Andy, about critical race theory until they define for me what it means to them. You know what I'm saying? These in Medicare for all, what does that mean to you? Some of these issues and some of these conversations and wordplay, well, they use them, Andy, not because they're curious and want to be intellectual about it and learn something, but because they know that those particular words will inspire some reaction. And that's really what it's about, is inspiring the reaction versus, you know, actually taking the time and the energy and certainly the understanding to accept a different point of view, Andy, is to acknowledge that, you know, perhaps some, not personal failing, but perhaps an ignorance of something that we did not know or did not consider. And I've come to the point where, you know, certainly as a younger person, I defended myself and whatever my thoughts were, you know, vehemently. You know, nowadays I'm like, well, you know, there's nuance, there's gray areas, there's other sides, there's circumstances, there's perspectives, there's context. There's a lot of things in any topic, damn near, Andy, that will allow for growth and understanding. And I think what we severely miss in this country right now is the opportunity to do that. And it's a lot easier to do when you have a beer and you're talking some trash to somebody next to you and you end up laughing about it because, you know, it brings the humanity back to it all.
Exactly. Well, Dom, you're still a young guy. Hell, you just turned 50. You got a long ways to go, so don't worry about that. You're still young yet, and there'll be no shortage of personality up there at Johnny's Lounge on a week from today. Who knows? We might be wasted by this time of next week, Thursday. You know, it's hard to say, but hopefully it's not as hot as it was last weekend, because I damn near died last weekend.
Oh yeah, it was brutal. How about something nice in the middle, in between? It was raining last time. No, we don't want it at 95. Just something nice and easy for us. Hey, thanks for the call, Andy, and certainly look forward to seeing you again next week, man. 844-967-2789. Jean from Eau Claire, you are next. Welcome, Jeannie. What do you got for us today?
Hi, guys. I just had a call when I was watching YouTube. I always watch you guys on YouTube. Hey, if anybody's not seen you guys on YouTube, they're missing a treat, because you guys do an outstanding job. You're wasted on the radio. You should be on, TV. Anyway, I just love Brian's presentation, sharing his experiences as his attempt to talk to his Republican representative. It was so perfect, because then whenever I try to call, I get the same thing, and I could just see Brian's face, and it's like, hey, that's the way I feel too. So I just thought that was so outstanding. You guys are really great, and I appreciate you all the time. You guys are really beautiful people on the inside and out, so thanks for all the work you're doing.
Oh,
and
Ginny.
Brian, for the presentation. That was good. Bye-bye.
Bye, Ginny. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the important thing is you have to challenge and say, okay, what's your idea? You're talking about having a face-to-face conversation with someone that doesn't agree with you. I love doing that all the time, because then you see each other, you recognize that you're human beings, and you can kind of actually have a conversation. Eventually, you might actually get to an idea. I've asked a million conservatives. I'm overestimating clearly, but it's somewhere close to a million, clearly, but under. I'll admit it's under. Point is that I keep asking about, what's your healthcare policy? What's your healthcare idea? What's your solution?
It's coming out in 2 weeks, Brian, right? It's
Exactly.
2 weeks. It's always 2 weeks from now.
But I asked around enough, and one of my weenie conservative friends, and he's a nice guy. He means well. I don't think he's, an insurrectionist kind of guy or anything. He's just a freaking pedantic weenie. And he's also conservative that way. So, but he shared with me an idea about, how to model it after what the people in Montana did. How to have Medicare pricing for all rather than Medicare for all, because it's the government bureaucracy that gets in the way of that type of thing. I don't want to over-explain it, but the point is I actually got to a solution, and I read the article and I went, wow, this could work. Or at least it's an idea.
At least it's an idea. At least it's an offering.
It's something that sparks something in me that goes, okay, I can take that and go over here. And that's what we've been lacking, because when you go and say win and lose, and then, it's the next election cycle already, I have to figure out how to frame everything I'm doing as awesome. Look at the way I slipped on that banana peel and cracked my head open. Isn't it the best crack in anybody's head that has ever happened? And it'll help me in this election cycle. How can I spin the crack in my head and the slipping on the banana peel?
Well, and that's, that's one of the challenges as well. And I don't know that, we're talking about money in politics quite a bit. Our buddy Tom out from LA, right? Getting money out of politics. And I love that thought. And I think as part of that is some sort of public funding of elections. I'm not clear that even if you are a great legislator, that you need to spend 60% of your time dialing for dollars. While I get it, certainly things cost money. Elections, campaigns cost money, and I'm not clear that I have articulated a specific way to make that happen. But to be able to lift some of that weight off of our legislators, where they can actually focus on some of these issues and not worry about, dialing for dollars and kissing ass and framing everything in a political way that won't offend this donor or that donor. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, and this is on both sides. This is politics as it is right now. I'm not saying this is Democrats are dialing for dollars, Republicans are dialing for dollars. We've got this U.S. Senate race coming up here. It's going to be $100 million race here in the state of Wisconsin. Whoever runs against Ron Johnson, or if somebody else, another Republican, decides to step up and Ron doesn't run, either way, there should be a lot of money spent in the state of Wisconsin. And I would just, it's unfortunate, because we are pulling the talent of those who, and there are some talented people who run for office and represent their constituencies well. in making them, basically fundraise nonstop. And I think that takes away a little bit. Now, certainly, you don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry either. Right? It's not going to be a party. Hey, we got 10,000 people running because everyone gets a certain formula. So there's got to be some limitation to it. But there's going to have to be, if we're going to get money out of politics, there's going to be some sort of public financing of campaigns.
I would love to know a statistic as to how much money has been spent on people running on fiscal conservatism. You know what I mean? Like how many times have people who are quote unquote fiscal conservatives spending millions on ads in between some crappy show?
No, it's not their money. It's just the government.
Oh, that's right. That's the point. It's just, come on. You're throwing you're on the stump talking about throwing away money at, education and things like that, when you're literally throwing money away on ads just so that your, consultant can get your 15% free.
844-967-2789. And in talking to the right wing, and even anyone, I guess, really, the philosophical pillars of their ideology. Republicans, it was what? The family values party, right? Okay, well, throw that out the door. I mean, Donald Trump was not the family values president. The fiscal conservatism, throw that one out because, Donald Trump and the continued support for the cult. Well, they truly, I mean, he's worse or as bad as Biden. If you think that, running a national debt deficit every single year is a bad thing. Well, then, okay, there you go. We only had one president in my lifetime that balanced the books, and that was Clinton. That was a Democrat. So if we look at the most recent Republican president and his policies and look at what that gave us, well, they passed the tax cut, $2-3 trillion. I mean, what did this thing cost us? And for what? What did we get? Well, we didn't get anything. A lot of rich people got some of their money back, but that does not help us. That caused us to go further into debt. So my question then is, and I'm a guy who could be concerned, although certainly we need as a country, it's okay to run a deficit, but we can't, I think we got to be concerned about getting too deep. And what that number is, well, I don't know that number. But if you're going to be discussing about it, it's going to be brought up. It should be brought up under Republican administrations. It should be discussed under Democratic administrations. If you're a fiscal conservative, I don't think you get to choose that, well, I got a conservative in office now, or at least claims to be a Republican. So we're just not going to talk about that one right now. So I don't know. So what are Republicans left to run on? Well, it's critical race theory, as transgendered sports in high school, and all these cultural type issues that while certainly important, to a lot of people and philosophically certainly important, there's bigger fish to fry. I mean, what are we doing about white national supremacy in this country? What do we just see at the Capitol? And if we can't even acknowledge those realities, it's going to be really hard to sit down legislatively with someone on the other side if you're concerned that they're an insurrectionist bastard. I mean, those things got to be handled before we can really, really move on. I know some things are going to get handled because they need to be, but we got to get to the bottom of that. One more segment left, folks. Join us on the phones, 844-967-2789.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
Transgender.
Are you ready for a political party in the heart of Red, Wisconsin? Join the Devil's Advocates live on the deck at Johnny's Lounge, 519 Madison Street, Beaver Dam, Thursday, July 15th. Watch the Devil's Advocates live broadcast 2 to 5 p.m. Enjoy the lakeside views from Johnny's outdoor deck. Support a neighbor's local small business, and then unplug for the party and enjoy the summer of love.
Oh, God.
Thursday, July 15th, Devil's Advocates, Johnny's Lounge, Beaver Dam.
Oh, crap.
Hey there.
Huh?
Yeah, you. Have you been to Knuckleheads yet?
Knuckleheads?
Yup, Knuckleheads at 550 State Street. They have something for everyone. From CBD, glass, hookahs, all the way to vaporizers. Even one of the largest cigar humidors in the state. So come on in, cruise up the stairs, and see what Knuckleheads can find for you. We have deals every single day. You can find us at 550 State Street, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Call 608-284-0151 with any questions. I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join MoveOn's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Five Nines, your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Devil Radio, your fix for progressive talk from Middleton to Monona, always streaming at darnwi.com.
The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have 1 foot in tomorrow.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now. Toll-free talk or text 844-967-2789. Hang on, Brian. Turn that up a little bit, man. A little highway star, Deep Purple. I think we're sending this one out to Ron Johnson. Unsafe at any speed. I want to thank our guest today, John Nichols. I certainly appreciate you coming around from the nation. You can find him at Nichols Uprising, of course, Congressman Mark Pocan as well. Always a treat to talk to the congressman. Tomorrow, I know we have Maggie Dawn, a crowd favorite, coming in at 4:30. Going to bring it home for us. Working on some other guests as well. It's Friday. We air grievances. Hell, seems like we do that a lot around here these days. 844-967-2789. But I want to perhaps end on a good note. As Patrick Marley reports in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, an unusual alliance of Wisconsin justices ruled Thursday that environmental regulators could consider the effects on surrounding areas when they issue water and wastewater permits to dairy farms and businesses.
What?
Right.
Like, that's I know this story, so it makes what?
Yeah.
I knew it, and it's still. I'm like, you can wait a second. They can legally decide that poop in your water is affected by the thing next to it.
I mean, the pair of rulings were a setback for Republican legislators who passed a law a decade ago that sought to limit how the Department of Natural Resources and other state agencies review permit applications. We hold that the DNR erroneously interpreted the law when it concluded it had no authority to consider the environmental effects of the 8 wells at issue here, the majority wrote in one of the decisions. So, the concept of considering effects on surrounding areas when issuing water and wastewater permits to dairy farms and businesses, this was not a unanimous decision.
Jeez.
The atypical alliance in both cases consisted of conservative Chief Justice Annette Ziegler and liberal justices Ann Walsh Bradley, Rebecca Dallett, and Jill Karofsky. In dissent were conservative justices Rebecca Bradley and Patience Rogensack. And of course, the Bradleys, as Patrick Marley notes, are not related. Justice Brian Hagedorn, who was elected in 2019 with the support of Republicans, but has sometimes sided with liberals, did not participate in the case. As is typical for the justices, Hagedorn did not say why he stayed out of the case, but he was former Governor Scott Walker's chief counsel when Walker signed a law at the heart of the cases. So perhaps some conflict. Thursday's decisions resolved two long-running, closely watched cases that centered on Act 21, a 2011 law aimed at limiting the power of regulators. That law says state agencies cannot take actions that go beyond what is explicitly spelled out in state laws and state rules. One case hinged on high-capacity well permits issued in the Central Sands region in the middle of the state. High-capacity wells can withdraw more than 100,000 gallons of water a day from the ground for irrigation and other agricultural and manufacturing purposes. Such wells can affect the water table, causing lower water levels in streams, rivers, and lakes. Fisheries and wildlife habitats in the central sands region have suffered because of low water levels. The Little Plover River in that part of the state runs dry in places each summer, but you can't take a look at what's happening if the river's running dry. You can't take into account anything else. This is the law that the Republicans have just lost at the Supreme Court on.
Heck, man, I just watched a documentary like Planet Life on, BBC or whatever, and they told me about how all systems in the entire world are connected and how they all work together. Maybe if you just watch TV for about 5 seconds or so, you might figure that out and maybe learn about it. David Attenborough is a very nice narrator.
If you were cashing CAFO checks and, large agribusiness checks, and maybe you would have that thought. But, this is about constituent services, Brian.
Look, man, I hate red tape like anybody else. I know about Chicago and the red tape there. Hey, look, you got a permit here. Oh, no, you got a permit for this. Oh, got a permit for that. Oh, let me grease the palms so I can have the permit. Rodney Dangerfield type of business here. But and that type of crap is just ludicrous and stupid. But you need to not have poop in the water.
That's a
you can't have poop in the water.
Yeah,
you can't drink water that is poop. And
wait. Now the Republicans might tell you, Brian, fish poop in the water.
Great, drink it. Here, come here, drink it. Bring Tom Tiffany down. I want to see Tom Tiffany suck down well water. Until he sucks down well water, I don't want to hear a peep from him.
Marley writes in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, the other case focused on what requirements the DNR can place on a wastewater permit for an expansion of Kennard Farms, one of the largest dairy farms in the state. The farm is located in Kewaunee County in northeastern Wisconsin, where agricultural pollution has been the source of controversy. Brian, I used to work on a dairy farm.
I've heard that.
In both cases, Dane County judges sided with environmental groups that challenged how the DNR handled the permits. An appeals court sent the cases to the Supreme Court without issuing a ruling of its own. In the case from central Wisconsin, the Supreme Court a majority found that the DNR was wrong. Now, this is Walker's DNR, was wrong to conclude it could not consider the effects of permits would have on nearby waterways. It told the circuit court overseeing the case to send it back to DNR for further review. And I would imagine perhaps the DNR under Evers would come up with a different conclusion. But I just want to just practically speaking here, if you paid the money to live on a lake or a river somewhere in this beautiful state of Wisconsin, and your neighbor, be it a business, an individual, or a corporate farm, sucks so much water out of the ground that your river runs dry, I would have a little bit of a problem with that as well. And for like 10 years, there's not a damn thing you could have done about it. Marley goes on to write, in the case from northeastern Wisconsin, this is the Kennard Farms, the majority concluded the DNR had explicit authority to put conditions on the wastewater permits for the dairy farm. I don't know why this is even challengeable or up for discussion. Both cases dealt with how much power the DNR has. Oh, there we go. Republicans and business groups argued the DNR's authority is limited because of the 2011 law. Siding with the environmentalists, the majority found it has broad powers because of the state's constitution's public trust doctrine, which says Wisconsin waterways belong to the state's residents. The legislature has put the DNR in charge of making sure lakes, rivers, and streams are protected, which allows it to put limits on environmental permits, the majority concluded. The DNR's authority to consider the environmental effects of proposed high-capacity wells, while broad, is nevertheless explicitly permitted by statute, Dallet wrote for the majority in the case from central Wisconsin. So, although not unanimous, the Supreme Court decides that these high-capacity wells can no longer suck rivers drier, or at least if they're going to permit those, they have to take those other issues into consideration. Welcome to the real world. I want to thank our guests once again today, John Nichols, National Affairs Correspondent from The Nation, Congressman Mark Pocan from Congress, and of course, you, our fair audience, thank you for listening. Tomorrow, big show. It's a Friday. We air grievances. Maggie Dawn going to hit us up at 4:30. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Nickelback's your favorite band. I apologize to the gentleman.
Why would you criticize one of the greatest bands of the 90s?
Wow.
Feeling freaky all night, they need to vax that thing up.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Jade Monkey. Come to the Monkey and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the J Monkey and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Hi, this is Cody with Go Landscaping. We do full yard installs, retaining walls, and certified dry stone masonry. Let us turn your dream for an outdoor living space into a reality. Go Landscaping is still taking on new commercial and residential lawn care for this summer, or let us bid your snow removal for fall. Find us at golandscapings.com. Again, that's golandscapings.com.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. President Biden says the date is set.
Our military mission in Afghanistan will conclude on August 31st.
Biden says the military drawdown is going in a smooth and orderly fashion.
The United States did what we went to do in Afghanistan, to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11 and deliver justice to Osama bin Laden, and to degrade the terrorist threat